So I see this story. A woman was told to wear a mask, so she takes the baton from the sheriff, starts beating the crap out of the sheriff. And I thought to myself, man, that's really crazy, especially because we've seen a lot of instances now of people refusing to abide by lockdown or, you know, sticking it to the man, I guess. Like there's one video where a guy parks his truck behind the health inspector and he's like, if I can't work, you can't work either. And the cop is like, you got to move your truck, sir. And he's like, I'm not moving anything. I'm desperate and I'm not doing anything. And so we're seeing stuff like this. So I see this story about this cop getting beaten. I'm like, man, that's crazy. Because it's one thing to say you're not going to wear a mask and then everyone makes a viral video about you. It's another thing to say you're going to keep your business open and you get arrested. It's another thing to be some lady going to the gas station and beating the cop with their own baton. Now that's a step over the line. That's where, you know, people are starting to snap. So we're looking up these stories like, oh, let's see, you know, let's see is there a bigger story here? You just Google search it. We got like, I think 4 stories already. Very, very similar. Some Navy vet bashed a guy over the head with a bottle because he was told he had to wear a mask. People aren't having it anymore. And that's kind of freaky, but this does tie into what we're going to see coming up on January 6th because you got all these people coming to D.C. Donald Trump says have this big rally. And you got to understand that the lockdowns are coming almost entirely from Democrats. There definitely are Republicans who are pushing certain lockdown restrictions and things like that. But you got a lot of people, they got nothing left to lose. They've lost their business. They've lost their livelihood. Their lives are at risk. They got free time. Just like we saw with the George Floyd riots. People had nothing to do. They were bored. Their jobs were gone. And they snapped and they went out and they smashed everything up. Now you've got people who are being told the guy they voted for, they like, is not going to win. And they got nothing left to lose. So when we start seeing these stories about people bashing somebody with a bottle or beating cops, I'm like, man, things are starting to get spicy. So we'll talk about that. Got a bunch of other stories too. The actual big news, I guess, is that Mitch McConnell rejected the $2,000 stimulus, proposed his own bill that has a provision in it to repeal Section 230, which is causing a huge debate. A lot of Trump supporters are totally for it. I think many people on the internet, including most on the left and many moderate independent types, are against it. That'll be interesting too. And then probably the greatest and only good thing to come out of the omnibus bill is that of all the things they snuck into this 5,500 page bill was a provision mandating the Pentagon release their information on UFOs in 180 days. And I'm like, I'm kind of okay with that one. Like the rest of them we can complain about. That one's cool. So we're going to talk about this. Hanging out today, we got Eric July again.
Hey, man.
How's it going, man? Thanks for sticking around, hanging out.
Hey, man, I'm here, and I appreciate it again. This was fun. It was fun yesterday. We had a great episode.
That was good. And we had to do it again because Luke wasn't feeling too well. We had to bring Luke back so that we could have this bigger conversation.
Well, I'm not going to run away this time, but me and Eric are going to, again, contest a lot of your ideas, which I'm very excited about.
I'm going to moderate ANCAP versus ANCAP.
But, yeah, I mean, we got a lot of stuff to debate about taxation being theft now.
Yeah, exactly.
But most importantly, sorry for walking out on you amazing human beings. I had a migraine all day, and then for some reason, I was at a level where I was about to puke or pass out. Yeah. And that's not good for television, so I just kind of walked away. What is it?
You forgot to take this.
You forgot to. I'd rather not.
You gotta show everybody.
Luke didn't take his medicine.
That's not.
Luke didn't take his medicine. His super.
That's by your side of the table. Just for the record.
That's Michael Malice's, who's getting a shout out every time we reference it that it's here because it's hilarious. He gets a shout out.
Yep.
That was his trick. He knows it's funny.
Not walking out today. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, right on.
Luke, pass me that male vitality.
Yeah,
while
pass
you're
it.
at
Are you gonna take some?
Yeah. No. I'm gonna spin it. I'm gonna spin the male vitality.
Oh, there we go.
While we're at it.
It's everything our show has built up to.
Spin that male vitality. What up, Holmes?
And the gorilla.
I'm back, and I'm with a better gorilla with a new and improved set piece.
I think somehow the gorilla's become like a mascot.
It looks good in red.
It does.
We've kind of decided. You couldn't really tell what it was in blue. I'll show you. It's a little
it's so cool.
Amorphous.
Oh my gosh.
So I think I'm going to stick with red for now.
It's so cool.
But Eric, if you think I should change the color, to let me know.
Hey, red's my favorite color, so.
Stick with it.
I'm glad you're back, Luke.
Oh, yeah.
I was sad when you walked out yesterday.
You got sick?
Understood.
Yeah.
Are you feeling good? You got your kombucha?
Yeah,
just like meditation.
Kombucha. I feel like if I would pass out or puke, you would like give me a stink eye and then be like, also in the news.
We turn the camera on you.
No, we turn the camera on you.
Yeah, look at
just
this.
have the pass out camera.
And watch the views start skyrocketing.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm also
I'm
also extremely grateful for being healthy. I woke up this morning and I felt amazing. And again, a lot of people take their health for granted. Don't. Seriously, I'm extremely happy to be healthy and cognitive and not in pain and suffering. So seriously, don't take advantage of it. Appreciate the health that you have.
You know what the easiest way to understand that sentiment is? It's like You never think about breathing out of both nostrils until your nose gets stuffed.
Yeah.
And then you can't remember what it was like. You know, you're like, man, I remember what I didn't even notice breathing out of both nostrils. Now my nose is all stuffed and I'm sick and it's hard to breathe.
Yeah, a lot of us,
all about.
don't take it seriously how amazing it is to be healthy. There's so many of us that are not healthy. Seriously, appreciate it. And you got to keep working and striving to be your best all the time now, especially in this sick and twisted world with so much crap shoved down your mouth hole, figuratively and literally.
Did you watch the show yesterday?
No,
Last night after you
no.
left? Dude, we talked about busting up the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, man.
Get it on.
I like that topic.
All right. Lydia, she's producing. She
I am
pushes
over
all
in the
buttons.
corner, pushing buttons rapidly.
Well, let's talk about this crazy story, man. Check this out. This is from the Daily Mail. Actually, hold on. I'm sorry. I can't believe I just did that.
Yeah, man. What the
Smash
heck?
the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Okay, where was I? DailyMail.com. Moment woman beats sheriff's deputy with her own baton after being told she couldn't enter a gas station without a mask. They say St. Louis County Sheriff's Deputy 59 was working security at a Shell gas station late on Christmas Day when she was attacked by a maskless customer. I like how maskless is now like an identifier because everybody's wearing masks. If you're not, that's how they identify you, maskless. Officials say the deputy told the female suspect to put on a mask, which prompted her to attack the officer with her fists in a parking lot. Assault was captured on cell phone video shot by bystanders. Suspect managed to grab deputy's baton and strike her in the head, causing a concussion. Deputy pursued her attacker and fought back before the woman fled the scene. That's crazy. I don't know if they made an arrest. Now, that deputy, you hear the story and you imagine it's some like strapping young male cop. No, it was a lady and it was a 59-year-old woman. She was working security at the gas station. When the woman entered the store without a face covering, you can see some of the clips there, and then just pulls her out of her car, I guess. The victim stated the suspect became belligerent when the victim informed the suspect should not enter the business without a mask, according to the police. Surveillance video from inside the store shows the suspect putting on a mask, then seemingly exchanging some words with the deputy standing by the door. This is weird. It's a weird story. I wonder if this actually has anything to do with masks and more with people just being, crazy. But then we got another story. Let me see if this is it. Yeah. Bar attack, suspect captured, charged with assault. This is from Christmas Eve. They say the man accused of hitting a Houston bar employee in the head with a glass has been arrested. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo tweeted Thursday. The suspect has been apprehended and charged with assault. Now they say this is a Navy veteran who did this. He was charged with assault, and it started. He was the guy who got attacked and bashed over the head with the glass got 10 stitches. The conflict began when the customer did not want to wear a mask. We got a bunch of stories about this. Look at this. Man arrested for shooting at gas station after being told to wear a mask. This is from only a couple days ago. I just did a Google search and all these stories started popping up. And then if I just show you Google, look at this. You got story about this is different. Airline kicks off a family because a toddler wouldn't wear a mask. Doctor's license suspended for refusing to wear a mask. Oregon doctor refuses to wear a mask. Man arrested for refusing to wear a mask on a flight from Salt Lake City. What's this one? Still refusing to wear a mask. Bill Nye would like to have a word with you. Whoa. I don't want to get on Bill Nye's bad side, so you tell me to wear a mask, Bill, and we're all good.
Well, from the first video, it looked like both of the ladies were in the same weight class, and that was a world star-esque video.
Yeah, but
Good
age
point,
matters,
yeah.
dude.
There was
Same
tasers,
weight
there was
class.
batons. The
Oh,
weight
yeah, she
class
got
was
tasers
the weight class was obese. Just for everyone watching out there, just for the record. And
you can't see it, yeah.
And I think people have had enough. I mean, there's more and more instances of individuals getting into physical confrontations because of the mask issue. Just even this morning, there was a video going around of a disabled U.S. Army veteran getting arrested, getting manhandled by a bunch of police officers because he allegedly wouldn't wear a mask inside of a mall. So we're seeing a lot of these incidences, and I think we're going to see more of them. And it's really a pity because a lot of individuals are forced to do this by their states because the state mandates that if you want to have a business, you're going to force everyone to wear a mask. In the United Kingdom, they're mandating bar owners to stop people from singing. Now, I don't know about you. I wouldn't want to be a bar owner trying to tell drunk British people not to sing because that's a recipe for disaster, especially at a bar, especially how crazy people get. But we have to remember all of this conflict, all of this infighting, a lot of the fights that start with masks all revolve around government mandates and orders and executive orders with
Not laws.
government officials, not laws. Government officials saying you better tell everyone to wear a mask inside of your bodega, or you're going to lose your business license, or you're going to lose your liquor license, or you're going to lose whatever license we give you, and you're going to stop being able to provide for yourself because of this imaginary, made-up little rule that we just made up on the spot.
You know what? This really highlights a funny phenomenon that's going on right now. You got a lot of young people who, 10 years ago weren't involved in politics and are now in politics, and they're very much like aligned with Democrats politically. Like a lot of these younger YouTubers and commentators, some of whom we've had here, they're younger guys. And there seems to be, due to this inexperience, a lack of understanding of what libertarian means. The fact that there's left and right libertarians, and that for the most part, they're all very critical of policing and government, regardless of whether you're left or right. And so there was a funny post on, it's called Leopards Ate My Face. It's a subreddit where they basically talk about, it's like hypocrisy. It's like somebody who advocates for something then becoming a victim of something. So it's an anti-vaxxer saying, oh no, I got sick. If only there was something I could have done. But there was a post from r/libertarian breaking down what they don't like about cops and policing, like right now when it pertains to COVID. And they were like, haha, they're reaping what they have sown. And then a bunch of people in the comments were like, I'm pretty sure libertarians don't like cops. Like, I'm not sure like what you think is going on. They've always been criticizing, like policing in this fashion. What I find really funny about all this is I posted a comment there's that video of the dude who parks his truck behind the healthcare worker. And I posted a video saying basically F the cops who are enforcing this. When Antifa was destroying businesses, I defended the cops who are protecting those businesses. Now the cops are the ones destroying these businesses, and they're not doing it under any constitutional law, or any constitutional authority or statutory law. Literally just some edict. Some healthcare guy's like, shut them down. The cop goes, you got it. So I criticize it. And I see these people who clearly have no political experience, they've not been involved before. They're like, now all of a sudden these people on the right are angry at cops. And I'm like, bro, I don't think you know who I am. Like, I'll criticize people who are violating the rights of individuals. But we're seeing from this, I think it is fair to say there's a lot of conservatives who are now waking up to the fact.
Absolutely.
These cops, they're going to shut you down.
And I say this out of experience, obviously doing what I do over at the Blaze and having so many conversations with these guys. A lot of folks' positions are changing, much like it is with like the healthcare industry and nurses and stuff. You're starting to see people on that side start to alter their position on cops, which they should. I mean, if you extended what they actually claim to believe with this whole limited form of government and all those sorts of things to the logical conclusion, then that's exactly what they would be. I mean, who is the one that enforces all of these laws that you may have an issue with? I always tell them about what it be taxation and all these other sorts of things that they will pin on the Bernie Sanders of the world, the AOCs of the world, and you can recognize that they aren't very smart people, but it also isn't them that goes out and enforces these laws. The teeth of the state are the police officers, and this is why we call them that. It's just gums at that point. They just like we see that as an example right here with the executive order where they could just pull it out of their behind. If the cops said, which you have seen in some local levels, not most places, but some instances, but if the cops just said no, then that would be it. It would be nothing to discuss. There would be nothing. This is why I'm like, this is an easy thing, but unfortunately, it takes a lot of folks that have, back to blue types, all of them, to actually have to say the people that we have been protecting are the folks that are responsible for the destruction right now.
It's not just that, Eric. When we talk about this protection, we really have to look at it from all the kind of events that have been unfolding during the summer. Right now, we have cops that are acting like tough guys roughing up a disabled U.S. Army veteran. Where were they when the Black Lives Matter was rioting, breaking, looting, and destroying people's personal businesses? They were there twiddling their thumbs, watching, standing by. Fox News had it in New York City where people were just brazenly breaking into every store that they wanted. Police officers on the same block were just literally standing there kicking rocks, not doing nothing. So on the backdrop of that, are they really protecting us, or are they really pushing a political agenda on all of us?
You know what? I got no problem if the cops aren't going to protect New York City from itself.
I mean, my thing is about, I get it. I'm obviously huge advocate of private property rights. And it's one thing for them, and this is why I've always said, like, look, I don't want a new law. I don't want to sit up here and lecture the cops about what they should and shouldn't do. I don't care for that. How about this? Allow free people to put that power more so back in their own hands. So why can't they protect their own business? Essentially illegal there, right? So if we saw that Minneapolis pawn shop owner, guy comes and loots his store, he airs his. I almost said something, but he aired him out. He's the one that goes to jail, right? For him defending, because out there they have this sort of duty to retreat law out there. So you can't, like I could in Texas, if you bust into my store, I could shoot you. Where in some places you cannot do that. So that's what makes it a free-for-all that way. And unfortunately, people think the answer is, okay, we just need to send cops to go do this, this, and this. And I'm like, it's less about that and more about people being free to, let's say, protect themselves and their own property. If they had that freedom, they'd be more likely to exercise.
Like also in St. Louis with that couple that walked out with the firearms.
Exactly.
They're the ones that went to jail.
Exactly.
They're the ones that were prosecuted.
And the cops seized their guns.
Yes.
They were on their own property. People came in and they said, get out. The cops took the guns from them. They got arrested.
Yeah, New York City, you can't even have pepper spray. You can't even legally own pepper spray, and then they're going to tell you that the police officers are protecting and serving you.
I'll say this. I do think the laws are completely overbearing in places like New York, but one of the big problems is density. So, I'm driving, around the middle of nowhere, and I'm wondering why it is, like, there's no cops anywhere in these areas. I was talking to somebody who mentioned in some of these places, let's say like West Virginia, because we've been looking at property in West Virginia, so we've been, kind of driving around a little bit. They're like, there's no cops. None. And I'm like, then where's the crime at? Doesn't somebody like break on your property and they're like, oh, look, a shot. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
So you've got all of these houses in this neighborhood, and I'm like, no crime, no crime. Why not? Well, if anyone goes anywhere near my house, I get shot. Everybody knows it. You want to walk on someone's property, you knock on the door politely, and they'll come and answer the door with their shotgun. If you break onto their property and start going through their garage, you're gonna get shot.
Simple as that.
But in New York City, I guess the problem is density. Everybody's stacked on top of each other. Like, how would that work if someone broke into your apartment and you shot them, and then bullets are going through apartments and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the training portion, and obviously there's a lot of libertarians out there trying to get people.
You only sell hollow points in New York City.
Exactly.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Right. So you're not
frangible?
actually shooting 5.56, just shooting through walls.
No, but there you go. You just said gun control.
No. Well,
You only sell. Well, it's called frangible, right? When
stop
the bullet
trying to
breaks.
get me in a corner here.
I'm
being facetious. Being facetious.
But for real, like, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you can have like an AR-15, and that might make sense. You got a massive property. Let's say you live on 50 acres, a small house, and you see someone going through like your barn or whatever. It might make sense to have a rifle you can use from far away, so you don't have to encounter whoever this person is. They might be armed. It might be dangerous. What if you get reports that there's armed groups going around raiding, looting places? You want a gun that's going to have decent range to keep you safe, right?
Or a wild animal.
Or a bear or something, right? But if you're in a small apartment in New York City, you're in a concrete box stacked on top of each other. If you have an AR or 5.56 or whatever, that's gonna go through some walls. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, again, it goes back to the training aspect, which is that's just as important. When we talk about gun control and all of that sort of thing, like, look, I want people to get trained on how to use their weaponry. I want people to be able to exercise that particular right. De-escalation is a big thing that I talk a lot about. But unfortunately, when it comes to instances like New York and those cities, definitely those inner cities, they have been, it is literally illegal for them to defend themselves. Like, it's illegal for them to do it.
That's why I think it should be illegal in New York City for police officers to have automatic weapons. In New York City, they have this hit squad. I forgot their exact name or their kind of tag or origin line, but they have these officers that look like Ninja Turtles, and they walk around with automatic machine guns in New York City.
What kind of machine guns do you know?
I forgot exactly the exact make and model of
like
what they had.
actual machine guns or just like select fire?
Full automatic assault, not assault rifles.
Oh,
Assault is the made-up term.
No. Assault rifles are legit. Assault weapon is the made-up term.
Yeah. Long barrel rifles that are fully automatic, and I'm like, that's the stupidest weapon you could have in Times Square with such a large crowd, especially if you're going to have a lot of innocent bystanders all around you. And if you look at many of the police shootings in New York City, even with their handguns, they automatically shoot so many times. They're so untrained that a lot of times innocent bystanders are hit.
So here we go. If you're going to ban guns, you're banning guns, not for certain people. If New York City says you can't have these guns, then nobody can have them, not even the cops.
And that's why that would never be a thing, because that's not what this is about. They ultimately want that one institution. And even the leftists who advocate for gun control, I don't think they understand to the extent of what it is that they're advocating, right? It's like, I don't want these guns to be on the street. And that's where the argument is. It's like, I don't want you to have that gun, and they walk away. But who's the one that's going to enforce it? What type of guns do they have? What if I decide that, okay, this isn't up for grabs here? What do you want them to do to me? Well, when they start answering those questions, well, that institution should have better weapons than you. That institution should be able to kill you in the event that you defend themselves. So that's the thing. Like, why I don't take like leftists, a lot of mainstream leftists, seriously when they talk about police brutality or these sorts of concepts of gun control and all of that. Because at the end of the day, they would send that same institution to go whoop up on someone in the event they needed to take away their gun.
Well, they have the illusion that government is there to protect and serve them. It's not.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I'm curious, man. I wonder if all of this COVID stuff is going to make everybody a lot more right wing.
Well,
but just to give you an example, like people are forced to leave cities, right? There's this viral post where somebody was like, I don't want to go back to normal. I don't want the way normal was, standing shoulder to shoulder with people in a subway cart, breathing their spit and their sweat. I don't want to walk crowded on sidewalks, unable to even, like, waiting in line to get a sandwich. I don't want to go back to normal. Normal was awful. And they said, maybe I should move to the suburbs. Maybe people are now realizing that being crammed in a concrete cubicle in a city that smells like sour milk stacked on top of each other isn't so fun. And COVID's making everybody kind of spread out and move to other areas. And that can be a good thing in the long run because they're going to start having to do hard work to survive, and they're going to understand the value of what they've produced.
Well, whenever we have the changing of the guard, especially with U.S. presidents, whenever it's a Republican president, usually the liberals kind of mobilize themselves and start getting activated. We're going to see something very similar with Biden and a lot of conservatives and a lot of people leaning towards conservatives because Biden has that power. He has already promised 100 days of masks during his first days in office. And, of course, he also appointed Dr. Fauci to a very prominent position with his administration. Dr. Fauci, by the way, just came out moments ago and said, put aside the nonsense of making masks be a political statement or not. We know it works. And
why hasn't it so far?
Where's the evidence?
Exactly.
No, listen.
I need the receipts.
They keep saying, look, I got no problem wearing a mask. It's meaningless to me, okay? It's such annoying sometimes. I go to the store, I'll put it on. How long am I really wearing it for? 10, 15 minutes? I leave, I take it off. The issue is we've been wearing masks.
Exactly.
Doing another mask mandate is not going to change anything.
Exactly.
And they keep saying, well, this would all be over if people would just wear masks. We've been wearing masks.
The data suggests it. Yeah.
There are some instances where people don't wear it. But what does that matter? Y'all went out and were dancing around for Biden, taking your mask off and drinking champagne. Don't blame these people.
Yeah. It's not only that, Tim. It's the same people like Dr. Fauci that were telling you not to wear a mask because it doesn't help you. The CDC head, don't wear a mask. The same Dr. Fauci that was lying to you about herd immunity and all these other issues that was financing the gain of function research in Wuhan.
Hold on. Fauci's lying now.
Yeah.
He's lying now. He used to say 60 to 70% herd immunity in order for us to be back to normal. Now he's saying, oh, I didn't really mean that. I think people are ready to hear the truth, 75 to 85%. But hold on. The World Health Organization says 60 to 70. So which is it? Who's lying? Well, YouTube says we have to abide by the World Health Organization guidelines. That means Fauci's a liar.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I don't care how many times Brad Pitt plays him. I'm not going to believe him. Sorry. Go ahead.
But with Fauci, I mean, he's moved the goalposts a million times. And I just don't understand why people still are listening to this man.
Tribalism.
Because, it's not like he's been correct necessarily on anything it is that we do, but we hold this guy up to more so worship him. I don't. But a lot of these guys worship him at the altar, and we listen to everything it is that he's supposed to say. Never mind the fact that he's been virtually wrong. Like, I don't know how many times.
There's a viral video showing everything he said that's been contradicted. And I'll tell you what it is. On the left, they say he's this great and honorable, genius who's guiding us to safety, and they trust him. Many people on the right, because I don't think the right, for the most part, is a monolith in this regard. They say that he's, crooked, corrupt, he's profiting and all that. No, hold on. Everybody needs to chill. Fauci, I'll tell you exactly what he does, because I read the news nonstop all day, every day. He waits 2 days and then repeats whatever he heard from the mainstream media. That's why he's behind the times. So I see these interviews where he's like, you don't need a mask. You don't need, you're going around wearing this. And I'm like, he's just repeating the talking point that came out in the New York Times 2 days ago. And then as soon as the mask thing is like, oh, actually, we should wear masks. Then 2 days after the story breaks and we're given the guidelines, he goes, well, you really should wear. Is that it? You just wait for the news to feel safe about what your opinion is, and then you give your opinion? That's not really an expert giving us an expert opinion.
No.
He's just repeating the news.
Well, Dr. Fauci has been around for a very long time. He's been advising many presidents, and I think it's very important to also note that he was the individual funding and backing the level 4 Wuhan laboratory when it came to risky coronavirus research, specifically gain of function research, trying to figure out how to make a deadly bat coronavirus infect human beings. That's what he was doing months before, of course, the main coronavirus.
That was actually New York. I think New York Post.
That was Newsweek as well.
Newsweek, yeah.
New York Post Newsweek reported that. I sent
that was
out.
back in April.
Yep, that came out. The funding stopped in 2019, and he funded them to the tune of $7.4 million.
You know what's crazy? It was Washington Post that actually ran the op-ed asking the question about the origins of the virus in this lab. It was the Washington Post. And I reported on it, and they tried claiming that I was pushing conspiracies, and I was like, oh, no, I was criticized. Trust me. I was saying, they're crazy. Of course they're crazy. I'm the smart one telling the Washington Post, I'm saying they're fake news, right? They're allowed to report it. And if I say that, they say I'm wrong. Trump sees a report from TechCrunch on Z-Pak and hydroxychloroquine, and he repeats it. He says, oh, I saw this story, it looks promising. And then they're like, oh, Trump's crazy, he's lying, he's wrong. And I'm like, he's just telling you what he saw in the news, man. Yep. But listen, we got all of these people snapping off. They're getting sick and tired of the lockdowns. Joe Biden saying the lockdowns not going to stop. Yeah. He said, we're going to listen to the science. And his science advisor says, what did he say, 6 months? Then we got Bill Gates and Fauci saying 2022. Mm-hmm. Now we got this from The Guardian. The World Health Organization warns COVID-19 pandemic is not necessarily the big one. Experts tell end-of-year media briefing that virus is likely to become endemic and the world will have to learn to live with it. Now, does that mean that we're all going to chill out, reduce the lockdowns, take some precautions, maybe get a vaccine? Or does it mean we're locked down forever? I'll tell you, I think it's locked down forever.
They've shown that not when I say it works, not that it actually helps in mitigating whatever spread. It works is in the fact that they can control you. They know that they can do that. That's a thing that they can do. They can shut everything down and do whatever it is that they want, and that's what they were allowed to do. So I think that is what people are going to see as a new normal, because unfortunately even a decade ago, it's just unreal. Could you just imagine someone being like, yeah, there's going to be this virus that is like a 99.9% survival rate, and we're going to shut not just this country down, but multiple countries down. Could you imagine
we're just going to shut down the small businesses and allow the big corporate buddies to be open.
That will transfer.
And you can still go out and dance for Biden.
Yeah, and you can, of course, protest for Black Lives if that's your thing as well. That's also on the table. But no, like, They recognize that it works, and the people that are in control, for whatever reason, the people that we listen to, whether they're a health expert or not. I mean, Bill Gates, I'm always seeing him on TV lecturing us about this issue as well. But that's what it is that they want. This is why I say, like, civil disobedience, man, is like, I know I got called a conspiracy theorist very early on in this pandemic when I talked about, like, dude, if you idiots think that it's just going to be 2 weeks, I'm sorry. We know that there's no such thing as a temporary government program. They're going to kick the can down the road again, and they still didn't listen.
I gotta stop you, Eric, and it's misinformation. Or I shouldn't say misinformation. I should say, how dare you criticize Bill Gates? It is a long-standing tradition in this country to turn to software developers for their expertise in epidemiology.
It's true.
Now, Bill Gates, who's more qualified than to talk about a virus than a guy who made a bunch of computer programs? Uh-huh. There's viruses on computers.
Different kind of virus.
There you go. No, virus, same word, right? Now, I wonder how many people who hate me are going to take that out of context.
Oh,
and look how dumb Tim is. Anyway, look. Here's the main point with the story, though. They're just saying it's going to get worse, right? You guys remember that V for Vendetta scene where the chancellor is like, "I want them to know why they need us," and then it shows all the news clips playing. And there's like the guy in the bar and he's watching the story and he goes, "Do you believe this bollocks?" And like people are shaking their head at it. So I see these stories where they're like, COVID will keep mutating. It will only get worse. And we don't know if the vaccine's going to help. And now we got a couple stories I want to show you to exemplify this. The first one is this one from the New York Times. Small number of COVID patients develop severe psychotic symptoms. Most had no history of mental illness and became psychotic weeks after contracting the virus. Cases are expected to remain rare, but are being reported worldwide. All right, there's one more story I got to show you, but I got a question for this. When those people got Bell's palsy, they said, "Oh, but only a few people got Bell's palsy from the vaccine. It's not a big deal." So a couple people get psychotic symptoms,
Oh.
and they think it's major New York Times published a story, boom, breaking. I see the story, and at this point, I'm just like, are you kidding me, dude?
Yep.
They're saying COVID causes blood clots, your feet scab up, you can't breathe forever, infertility, your heart stops, and you go psychotic. It does all these things. Calm down, man. If that's true, then we're in serious trouble, right? But to be fair, okay, maybe it is true. That's why they're all freaking out. Okay, but it kind of does feel like they're just inundating with this stuff, and that's exemplified by this next story. From ABC News, nurse tests positive for COVID-19 shortly after getting vaccinated. You mean to tell me they get the vaccine, and then 8 days later they get sick, and they say this scenario isn't unexpected. Here's how it could have happened. Now maybe they already had the virus before getting the vaccine. But I'll tell you what this story is: more fear. I'm sorry, the vaccine. Why is ABC News telling us the vaccine? They're putting out the story that questions whether the vaccine is going to work. They want us terrified so that we just give in and say, do whatever you want, government, shut everything down forever, and let people just wallow in it.
That's exactly what they want. But I mean, look, this is why it was so important that no matter where you were at on this issue, I mean, I understand there was a lot of people that were freaking out early on. Like, you didn't know much about the virus. Okay, let's just say for the sake of conversation, though the numbers were coming out of South Korea and even China, they said the same thing. Believe them or not, they actually said the same thing as far as who it impacted, how deadly it actually was. But that's why it was so important there to say, no, like you had to do it then, because if you didn't do it then, you showed them. You showed the state. You showed the whether it be local governments, the governors, every congresswoman and man. You showed them that that's all that it takes is to scare you. That's all. When do they report good news? Wouldn't it be fantastic news for them to say, yeah, not the vast, and when I say vast majority of people that catch this, like it's not even close. Like the vast majority of that catch this will never have to go to the hospital, and they will never get severely sick. That's not my opinion. Their own data says.
Most importantly, you brought up a very important point before, saying that there's too many things going for the elites for them to stop this. They're benefiting off of this too much. And then also, when you look at V for Vendetta, it is eerily very similar to what's happening right now. And just to remind you, in V for Vendetta, it's where the government created a virus and used it to seize power over its people. And there was one incident of police brutality that sparked a national protest and led a larger revolt against the government. That was V for Vendetta.
Wait, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
That's what's freaky.
Yeah.
What happens on January 6th? We'll talk about this in greater detail. Like, I don't want to derail the conversation, but let me just say, man, what happens on January 5th when the Democrats win in Georgia, assuming they do, and then all these Trump supporters here, the Democrats now control everything, and they're in D.C. and they're angry. They got nothing to lose. They're desperate. Their property's gone. Their businesses are gone. Their savings is gone. I'll tell you this, man. It's all tied together. It's just like V for Vendetta, where he says, I could see it all tied together, like, Web or whatever. You've got people. I remember watching a video. Oh, wait. Let me slow down. I went to a bunch of Trump rallies, 2015, 2016. And I met a bunch of people who were voting for Trump. Some of them were Bernie Sanders supporters. When the Democrats gave it to Hillary, took it from Bernie, some of them went to Trump. They said because Bernie and Trump were the only ones talking about the trade agreements and bringing back these jobs. I remember talking to one dude who was probably like early 50s. And he was saying, this was in Janesville, Wisconsin. And he was talking about how his job was gone overseas. And Trump's talking about bringing these factories back and bringing back, his livelihood, his town. And that's what he's voting for. And then I remember seeing a video from a couple years, like a year and a half or so into Trump's presidency. It was a dude crying. He was like a middle-aged guy crying, saying, before Trump, I lost my job. My savings has completely diminished. The college fund for my kids we were eating into it. And I knew that not only was I on the verge of not giving my kids a future, we were on the verge of homelessness until Trump came in and started putting in these rules, these tariffs, negotiating these trade agreements. And then these companies start coming back to my area. He's like, now I'm working again. Now I'm saving again. Now I know that I have my safety net back, and it's thanks to Donald Trump. And the guy was in tears, not bawling his out like crying, but he was like, his tears coming down his face where he's like, thank you, Donald Trump. You've saved my life. I can't believe it. I imagine that video, and I've talked about that one so many times over the past several years, as one guy having his life turn around, or the people in Michigan when the car factory started coming back and reinvesting in the Detroit area. Now those people are being told it's all being taken away from you. Remember that episode of South Park where Cartman gets $1 million? You ever see that one? He gets $1 million and he buys a theme park with it. And then Kyle is all like, why? It's not fair. God, why would you give Cartman, the worst person in the world, $1 million? But then Cartman loses the $1 million and he's miserable and he's crying and he's screaming. I'm not trying to equate the hardworking people to Eric Cartman. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying you have people who are desperate. And Donald Trump comes in, and in 2019, we get the best economy of our lives. So says Jim Cramer, if you take his word for it. These people are getting their jobs back. They're getting back on track. Then COVID hits. The Democrat governors destroy everything, shut it all down, take away your job, take away your property, your chance at life. And now you're going backwards. Now we got CNBC story says they interviewed 100 investors, like wealth management funds. 2/3 believe under Biden, the economy is going to tank, or it's going to start going down. It's going to get bad. Now these people are watching everything being stripped away. Are they going to show up in D.C. and are they going to be really, really angry? Kind of think so.
I mean, it can go either way, but until people, I don't see this issue being resolved until people really understand what the hell is going on. You know, it's not just, you know, I get it. You thought Trump was the nuke in the system. I never assumed that, never thought that he was, never supported him. I mean, I could say that for any politician for that matter. But the idea that these institutions continue to grow in power, and that includes Trump, you know, with his executive orders, that's going to set the scene up, precedent being set for Joe Biden to come and basically do the same thing, just may not be working out to these people's benefit. So this is why if it keeps going that route, the most peaceful way is, to me, a separation. Like this idea that we all have to share this one government, though we hate each other to this point, makes no sense whatsoever. This is why they're control freaks. They're control freaks. It's like, it's not about people being free. I don't care what dumb crap they throw out there, acting as if they give a crap about someone being free and liberty and all these concepts, no matter what side of the political spectrum that they claim to be on. The issue here is that these folks have this power, right? This territorial monopoly, right, on use of force, violence, and ultimate decision making, and they say, we want that, and we want to implement that. We want to utilize that to implement these crazy things that you see going on, shutting folks down, doing whatever it is, and it's always claiming to be benefiting the people that are around them. This is why I say at some point, maybe this isn't working. Now, that doesn't mean even once we split, we can't have a deal that says, okay, you got my back, I got yours, but we're not sharing a government. It makes no sense for us to share a government.
Well, weeks ago, I was talking about this and talking about a peaceful divorce, and people were like, you're crazy. Now I see more and more people talking about it, because when you look at the government, it really looks like there's elements that are trying to take away people's ability to fend for themselves.
Absolutely.
Especially with the latest news from the IRS today that is planning a 50% increase in audits of small businesses.
Small
businesses, yes. The IRS is literally hiring additional staff right now to conduct 50% more audits on small businesses, literally wiping out anyone who survived and was left over.
That's unbelievable.
To get their again. Meanwhile, Amazon, Walmart allowed to be open. They barely pay any taxes themselves.
Sure. But how many audits do they do per year on small businesses?
I got to look at I don't know.
Because I think the important question is, what if they only do 10 audits?
I highly doubt that.
I'm just saying. Yeah. What if out of we got 100, we got 225 working people in this country. How many of them own small businesses? It's an important question to ask. How many audits do they do? Because 50%, that's a percentage. Either way, I think it's.
Well, yeah. I mean, the problem is like they're going after the little guy.
I don't want to defend the IRS.
I know. No, the idea is obviously that they're going after the little guy after the little guys have been utterly destroyed this past year. That's what they've been doing. So I get it. I totally understand why someone would, look at that, and I hate the IRS, and look at that and be like, hey man, what are y'all doing? But no, like there's something wrong with this, and the minute I can get Americans to understand that, the better off we're going to be. But a lot of them are control freaks. A lot of them just want, it's not about liberty. It's about more so control. So I want to be able to force that person on the other side of the aisle to do what I want them to do. And they can't see a world where it's like, okay, why don't you go do that? And I'm just going to go do that. That sounds crazy.
This is the thing, right? You got states like Wyoming. That's the most Trump state in the country. Granted, they only have like 550 million people, 550,000 people, not million, in the state. That'd be a massive state, by the way. No, 550,000 people in that state. So it's not the biggest. It's the most Trump support of any state. And then I think West Virginia. It doesn't make sense that they're going to pass, Joe Biden wants to ban all online sales of ammo. of ammo, accessories, and guns. I'm like, well, that might make sense for New York. We talked about it. You know, what do you do if someone's breaking into your little concrete cubicle that smells like sour milk? Maybe it doesn't make sense to fire, 5.56, which might go through the wall. But people might do it if they just have it. So then there's questions about density. But if you're in West Virginia, if you're in Wyoming, it definitely makes sense to have, an AR-15 when you're dealing with animals. In fact, I don't even know, depending on which AR you're using, what kind of ammo can use. Might not even be able to actually stop a large bear or some animal that's attacking your home. You might need some serious firepower for that. So in New York, they're like, these politicians say, we need to ban all these guns. How stupid must you be to have like a 458, a SOCOM or 450 Bushmaster or something in New York City? And then somebody who's in the middle of the wilderness is like, are you nuts? I definitely need that stopping power.
And that's the
why
thing.
Is that law going to affect them?
Right, but that's the problem. Like, why do we have this setup where everybody can pack up, whether it be in Washington or wherever they're at, and they can vote in laws, or rather legislation that can impact people in Wyoming? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sort of sense when you break it down like that. But we just for the longest have accepted it like that's what it is. I think right now what we're seeing is how much of a problem it actually is when you get people that are ruled over by folks that they hate. So that, like, we saw that definitely over the last 4 years, how the leftists just went utterly insane because the guy, never mind, he's actually probably more like them than any Republican president before.
Right.
They don't even understand that. But just
that's why they hate him.
Maybe that's they see an image of themselves, right, coming into fruition. But no, that's the problem, and I think that we have to realistically talk about that as a legitimate solution. Like, why does it have to be that we all share this particular government? And it's a lot easier. We accept the idea that it's a lot easier for Americans to fight the like federal government as opposed to, let's say, the United Nations or something like that. And it's obviously a lot easier for me being out of Texas to fight the Texas government as opposed to the federal government. Why is it that we all have to share this government? It's just because
we
reasons.
don't. Yeah,
exactly.
I'll put it this way, right? There's definitely too much federalization happening. Because we could have one federal government so long as the states had, more guarantees and more protections. The problem is the battle is increasingly over the national control. Nobody cares about their local politicians. Their city falls to crap. And so they talk about voting for someone for Congress. And I'm like, but Congress is federal voting, not local. Yeah. You want someone to clean up your state. Vote for your state representatives. You want better representation where you live, and you got to vote locally.
And that's why I think that the complete removal of that would have people focusing, like people be more narrowly focused on what's around them as opposed to acting like Bernie Sanders is going to save their life.
But that's how it used to be. It used to be that the president was chosen, for the most part,
this is a figurehead.
The legislature of the states ultimately, were deciding who was going to be the elector for the state, and that the senators were voted on by, I believe it was the legislature. It was appointment essentially. They started changing these rules to make it more about popular vote, to make America more of one federalized nation than individual states. It doesn't work in the long run, and it doesn't work in Europe either. The crazy thing is we've been a country for a lot longer than the European Union's been around. But one of the biggest problems, because I've been all over Europe, and I hear from a lot of people in Spain. I've been to Spain, I've been to Germany, I've been to Netherlands, I've been to the UK, I've been to France. They tell me, Greece, one of the challenges, I was in Greece, and I was asking this dude, he was an Uber driver, and he was talking about how the economy is really, really bad. It's really hard to make any money. And I was like, but can't you just move to like London? And he goes, I'm Greek. I don't want to move to London. And I was like, but it's the EU. You could go and the jobs are better. And they're like, no, I'm Greek, man. I'm not British. They don't view themselves the same way. They don't want to live under the same rules. They want to eat the same food. They're very different people.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
For sure.
Right, right. But
just to finish my point, in the U.S., it's very, very similar. Yeah. People in West Virginia want to go hunting with their gigantic
It's a different
rifles.
place. I know you can say this because you've traveled, and I know you especially, Luke. Mm-hmm. We can all say this for those of us that travel. You can be in even certain parts of a state, and it's like night and day. Like I lived in Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi is nothing like Dallas-Fort Worth. For those of you, of you that don't know, and unfortunately, because of this hyper emphasis on like, they talk about this diversity thing, right? And it has nothing to do with thought or anything like that. What they really want is this different colors and different genders of people saying the same thing.
Yes,
right. That's exactly what they want. But where I've been, it's gotten me in trouble a lot. Like, I embrace those differences. There's nothing wrong with the fact that people on that side of the country They just act different. They're culturally different. What they value is a little different. So again, why is it that we're trying to do this one? That was the problem with COVID. We saw this. It was a one-size-fits-all approach. Why are we treating New York? I mean, at some point it was kind of a shift, but why was New York being treated like Texas? Like, it's not the same. Like, they don't, how they live, even in New York, like upstate versus New York City, they're not the same.
So I'll put it this way, man, because we've talked about the peaceful divorce scenario. It's pretty popular. I in the sense that a lot of people are talking about it, and we brought this up a couple times. But I'll say this, man. The left likes to say that the red states will be a third world country. I've talked about how cool is that Ancient Technologies YouTube channel where the guy builds mud huts and like clay pots and stuff. I'm like, I'm totally down to build my own little cabin. And, we're talking about getting this massive farmland, like open land in West Virginia, just so we can build and do our thing, use our hands and have our own space, start from scratch.
Yeah.
Build just like, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about going to New York City. I haven't lived in New York City in several years now. I got out of there. I was like, I don't like, at a certain point, I really liked the idea of being in this dense urban jungle or concrete jungle. And then at a certain point, I was like, I can't do anything.
No.
You can't do anything. I couldn't even have a moped. You couldn't even drive a car. You can't even park in Manhattan. I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah, no.
You can't get around. It's really funny. We're out in the middle of nowhere, but we're still really close to like a good airport. And I was worried. I'm like, man, it's pretty far away. And then I realized if you live in New York City, if we did this show in New York City and we wanted to fly in a guest, if you were in Brooklyn, for instance, Williamsburg, maybe popular hipster area, no matter what airport someone lands at, it's like an hour or 2 hours to get there. It's only like 5 or 7 miles. That's how jammed up and congested and awful these cities are. Sitting in a car in traffic with stoplights, you can't move, $10 to go through the tunnel or whatever. I'm just like, dude, I want to live in the mountain.
Amazing. And it's crazy how, considering that, there are actually people that want to move towards a direct democracy where folks in areas like that get to rule over, or more so make rules on behalf.
They want to get rid of the electoral college.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we really have to understand here that collective centralization is psychotic.
Yeah.
I think we just need to understand that.
Let's get it out there. Let's be 100.
It's crazy. It's insane if you think that one person could know what's best for everyone, and that's basically the idea of the
Communism.
left, of communists, of
that's
more
exactly
and more progressive leaders that think that they know what's best for you. And there's two groups of people, the people who believe that and the people who just want to be left alone. Create two separate territories. Let people who want to be left alone on this side, people who don't want to be left alone, love the nanny state, love being told what to do, love getting slapped around, like getting their toys taken away, like being fined and penalized for living their life like they do. If you like that, you like dominatrix or whatever, you go to that side of the country. It's okay. I don't blame you. Hey, I'm a free-minded person. You do whatever you got to do.
Can't you do this in parts of Mexico? Like, aren't there places where there's like no cops and you can just like do your thing?
Like in Tehran, yes. Tehran, I visited there personally. I did a little small documentary on it on my YouTube channel. And it's a city of 30,000 people that kicked out the police, kicked out the government, and in doing so, kicked out the cartel.
Yep.
And it was in one of the most dangerous states, Michoacan, where people were dying more than anywhere else in all of Mexico. Now, that city, Tehran, is one of the safest places in all of Mexico, even though it's surrounding by all this violence. And there wasn't a murder there within 7 years, ever since they got rid of this. And they live under a kind of anarchistic system, but they have community meetings and they decide what's best for them as individuals.
Exactly.
And they are armed to the teeth, and the Mexican government keeps trying to disarm them, but they say no, and they have their own checkpoints, literally banning politicians and banning any political slogans, any political banners, any political stickers. If you have a political sticker and you want to enter their town, they're going to make you take it off. They literally have checkpoints with guys with AR-15s saying, nope, you're not coming in.
Let me give a shout out to those Antifa leftists who are constantly saying very, very similar things. That you don't need government, that you can live cooperatively and have community meetings and everyone gets by. But, I'll tell you, the one thing that probably made me, I've always been fairly libertarian on a lot of policy issues. Look, I'm a skateboarder. So I grew up in the city, and I'm like, skateboarders have a problem with authority, man. We just want to be left alone. But I go to West Virginia, and again, like I said, I'm driving around at all these houses everywhere, and I'm like, there's no cops. None. I mean, there are sheriffs, I guess. There are some cops. But people are saying, oh, man, if you call them, it's like an hour before they get here. Now, I lived in Miami, and it was very much like that. And the one thing you always hear about, like, where's the crime? It's like, well, everybody's armed.
Yep.
You know, armed society is a polite society.
Well, that's what they say, right?
West Virginia has some of the most Second Amendment friendly kind of initiatives, more than I think than the majority of the United States. I remember we were driving through it, and I'm like, I haven't seen a police officer once. And then you started laughing, like, yeah. I'm like, this is amazing. This is awesome. I like this place.
Why doesn't Antifa move to West Virginia, man?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they're frauds, man. I want to be clear.
Yes.
They are complete frauds. Those guys are, and I think maybe it does stem from them being so anti-private property rights, but these guys have no problem with utilizing, like, when we talk about the Antifa types, so these kind of progressive, uber progressives claim to be anti, even they throw out the slogans of defund the police, but really all they wanted to do was replace it with the woke police.
Be the police.
Yeah,
exactly.
that was more so what it was. That's what makes them frauds, and this is why I don't ally myself.
Yeah,
with
Well,
in Chaz,
so-
there was like black children that were shot and killed.
Exactly.
Like,
Well,
where's the outcry?
Let me tell you something. We were Luke and I were downstairs earlier. We're talking about setting up, like, getting this, like, 100 acres. It's cheap, man. 100 acres in the middle of nowhere, West Virginia, is not expensive, especially if people come in, pool their resources. And so we're talking about the fun things we can do, what we can build, have all this free space, just be left alone. And I'm saying, where's the left to go and do this? You want your commune? You can build it. But let me tell you a story, and you might remember this. During Occupy Wall Street, I've told this to the audience. You've probably not heard this. Someone donated a farm to the occupiers, to the activists. And so a bunch of these people moved upstate to live on this farm and be self-sufficient, self-sustainable. And it was a leftist dream, man. No pollution, no carbon. You know, they were taking care of the animals and living off the earth.
They had collectives where they shared their own food.
And guess how long? I'm sure some of the people, like, stayed for a long time.
It was a huge territory, by the way.
Right. But let me say, of the people I knew at Occupy, how long do you think they lasted? How long do you think they made it on this farm?
To put up, that's tough.
So they moved from the city, urban liberals.
So they
to a farm to live
long.
off the earth. How long do you think they made it?
I'm gonna say, and I think I'm actually overshooting. I'm gonna say 3 months.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. So I had some friends who came back. I had some friends that were like, we're going to go live on this farm, man. And they were talking about the banks are ripping us off. They're like, if we're working on the farm and we're growing our own food, we're not getting taxed on that. They can't take that from us. And so we're not going to contribute to climate change. We're not going to contribute to these banks to, extracting our value. And we're going to be relying on ourselves. And then you know what happened when they came back? I was like, you were gone for 2 weeks. Like, what happened, dude? Wasn't it fun? And they were like, dude, you wake up at 6 a.m., you go to bed at midnight, and you're working nonstop the whole time. No days off, never. And I laughed. And I'm like, what did you think it meant to live on a farm, dude?
Yeah.
Did you think you were going to go there and put your feet up and chew on straw and just eat apples from the tree?
The answer is yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes. No, they seriously. Like,
I knew one or two people there that were good people.
No, for sure.
Good-hearted people.
A bunch of people totally were into it.
But I do remember them saying they had this huge territory and they were recruiting for it hard because no one went. A few people went. One of the two of the people were really great human beings, and I think that there were some people that did stay on that farm and did eventually start working on the land and stood there a lot longer than 2 weeks. But as you said, that doesn't really.
But that's
portray
representative to me with the ideology and what it is that like. It's like, when we talk about it being maybe a pipe dream, I don't think these guys understand work. And we talked about this in yesterday's show about how, they don't understand farming. That's not anything that is even. This is why it's so easy for someone like in Portland or something like that to just sit up here and say, well, you guys got all the money, you guys got all the resources, just give us the resources. They don't understand like how those resources get from point A to point B. That's not even. It's just because they have so easy access. Thanks to the market being not only, we don't have a free market by any means. It's freer than a lot of other places.
You know that song, Money for Nothing?
Yeah.
Money for nothing and the chicks for free. It's this. My understanding of the song was that what was it, the Rascal Flatts who wrote that? Mm-hmm. That they overheard
Dire Straits.
Dire Straits.
That's not what Rascal Flatts.
Yeah, what is that? Is that
That's a
something?
country band.
Oh, okay. Anyway,
Yeah,
Dire Straits.
There we go.
I have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyway, these apparently there were guys who were watching one of their music videos or something like this and thought it was easy. Like, everything's always easy. It reminds me of so many people who think, man, I'm in the wrong business. I should be on YouTube. It's so easy. These people
I get that all. I know
make
you
so
get,
much
I know
money.
you get it. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, it's just easy. I'm like, I do it.
Right.
Do it. If it's that easy to
then
do
they don't.
it, and they don't.
Yep.
Then
They
they
don't do it.
don't because they don't understand it. It's like they see the outcome more than anything. Like they don't see the fact that you have to work, beat on your craft, or the grinding. Like I was telling my followers today, I was like, I don't think y'all understand. Like Tim wakes up in the morning and gets to work. Like even with him being a successful person, he gets up and he grinds just like we all do. Like it's not coming to us. You know what I'm saying?
We were screaming about just moments ago before we started the show. I'm like, we got to go to this thing and do the hotel thing January 6th. And you're like, no, man, I can't. I got to work. And which, you got to respect Tim's work ethic because he works extremely hard. I got to say that. But also, there's a similar trend with this ideology and people going hungry. Whether it's the USSR, China, Venezuela, Zimbabwe. I'm sorry, I like to eat. Yeah. And a lot of other people like to eat too.
This dude,
but
I made cookie cupcakes.
Oh man.
And this dude ate all of them.
I come from Poland, and in Poland, if there's food on the table, you eat it.
But
if you don't finish it, grandma's going to hit you with
hold on. And why is that?
over your head.
And why is that?
Because we went through starvation
right?
because of the USSR.
Yeah.
That literally brought in communism, welfare for the people. We're going to take care of everyone. You're going to have to buy everything on a piece of paper that the government mandates. Literally starved so many people, and my family went through hell. Absolutely.
It goes back to what you were saying earlier about why it's so important. Why do we advocate for freer markets and the division of labor and all of those things that a lot of progressives or communists would generally say is a bad thing? It's this idea that even a group of people, there's 330 plus million people in this country. Like this idea that a handful of people can just dictate how much something must cost, how much something, how we can allocate all of these resources for that many amount of people is insane, and nowhere in history, at least at that large of a scale, has that worked. You talked about the USSR. You got to understand what got them overages and shortages. It's that central planning, or this idea that if we can get a group of people, whether vote elected or someone came down with the iron fist, if we can get a group of people to force you all to give us the stuff and we allocate it, y'all gonna be all right.
But you're wrong. You're wrong.
Yeah.
Where else would Sri Lanka get their speedboats if it wasn't for this system?
Yeah,
Where
true.
else would Pakistan get their gender studies?
Touché.
Where else would there be book clubs in Pakistan and Afghanistan if it wasn't for our system?
That's
Okay.
touche.
So
You got it.
Also, surrounding that important news about government spending, there's also a new article
Well,
that
so-
is pretty fascinating.
No, but this next story ties in exactly what you were just saying about these leftists saying you've got the resources, just give them to me, not realizing all the work that goes into it. So the big news we have now that came out today is that Mitch McConnell, first of all, he objected to the $2,000 stimulus bill, and everybody's complaining, oh, Mitch McConnell's blocking our stimulus or whatever. Mitch McConnell introduces $2,000 aid checks bill tied to social media immunity and election fraud. This is really interesting stuff. Basically, what Mitch McConnell is saying is, I'm not going to give you your blanket $2,000. You're going to vote for my $2,000, and here's what it says. As part of McConnell's bill, Section 230, the social media immunity law would be repealed, and a commission on election fraud would be created. The stimulus checks would be increased to $2,000 from the current $600. Quote, it will not pass the House and cannot become law, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said in a statement referring to the Democratic majority House of Representatives. McConnell's office was not immediately available for comment, blah, blah, blah. Do you think they're going to vote for this? Because this is interesting stuff. I've been saying for a while, Trump wants to repeal 230. I think it's really, really bad. But some conservatives made some really good points. And I'll tell you why I think it's bad. Repealing 230 means that it's the end of social media as we know it. I think if I was going to be optimistic, this show would probably be fine because YouTube is trying to be like Netflix, and they like this show. They seem to like me and the people I associate with or whatever because it's safe, I suppose. Well, YouTube doesn't seem to have a problem with you being on the show, right? So here's the point. If I was going to pitch something to Netflix. I've actually had a lot of discussions. It's likely they'd probably pick something up. Yeah. So YouTube's going to be like, this is a good show. We can keep this. We're safe. But they're going to get rid of all the smaller creators. Your channel, Eric, might be at risk because they're going to be like, we don't know who this guy is. We don't care. And we don't want to get sued for libel and defamation. Yeah. So they're going to get rid of anyone who's not approved. Yeah. So I think ultimately it's a bad idea. But what's interesting is a lot of conservatives brought up a really good point. They said, Tim, we've already been purged. It's only good for us. If they get rid of it, if we're out, then so I guess the way you put it is, if right now the media companies are favoring progressive ideals and restricting conservatives, then the best thing for conservatives is to nuke the whole system because right now they're losing because of it.
Well, I think Section 230 is going to be abused, especially under a Biden administration that has many high-level tech executives within it. And of course, they're going to be patting and patting each other on the back and helping each other out. And of course, the little guys are going to get screwed over, and everyone else is going to be allowed to do what they usually do. Or it's just not going to be enforced like many of the laws that are just there on the books, but they're not really used at all. So I think that's a probability that we have to understand here as well.
I don't know if they'd actually move to repeal it, but I know the Democrats are probably going, oh, no. Oh, I can't believe they're going to repeal this. Whatever will we do? Because like I said, YouTube will allow my show to be around. And you know what else is going to happen? Take a look at Netflix. Take a look at all of these big production, companies. What kind of movies are they making? They're making woke and far left and weird
that's all I talk about on the
neolib or
channel.
whatever. Yeah, they're making all of this stuff. So if you get rid of the independent creators, that's what's left.
Yeah.
With
their competition, though. Like, I've long talked about that. Like, this is why channels like mine blew up over the course of the last, couple of years because of that. It's like a lot of folks are tired of that. They're like, all right, we're being lectured all the time in the movies that we watch, the games that we play, the comic books that we read, and we don't want any of that. But the issue, though, is when we talk about, like, I don't know, these Uber like tech companies that take these government, I would encourage you guys to look at that. I know we talk about corporate welfare all the time, but just go look at how much these guys get in terms of not even with the taxation, but just with like how they work with the government directly, be it in government contracts,
like these big tech companies.
Yeah, like
the guarantees and protections.
Yeah, exactly. And why it is that they often favor those more regulatory bodies, because they're the ones that benefited. We talked about that last show with I talked about the bail monopoly. Like, that was what happened. They work with the state, and then it sounds good. It's like, hey, we're protecting you, net neutrality, we're protecting you, and then it's like, no, that actually does not benefit you. They just worded it in a way that was supposed to benefit you.
This is how the game works. Mitch McConnell is coming at repealing 230 and an election fraud investigation from the left. The left argument. This is really interesting. Give the people their $2,000 and repeal 230. That's how they do it.
And all the other
they give you money. Now, I think, part of me, I look at the repeal of 230 and, like, imagine if we got rid of social media. We went back to the era of like 4 or 5 news channels. Then you'd have the restoration of many news organizations and a balance of competition between perspectives and a more unified worldview for people in this country. At least that's the idealistic utopian vision of what might happen. In reality, what will happen is the progressive leftists who have already gone insane from their own platforms, like Jack Dorsey went nuts. Jack Dorsey's own creation, Twitter, made him crazy. And I mean it. You can look at the things he believes and says, and it's a product of the far left in swimming in a pool of their own filth. Yeah. And then they prop each other up. The likes, create more shares, more retweets, and then it spirals out of control. And then he starts believing, the refuse coming out of his own platform. That will be what's left. There won't be this perfect system of restoring balance and bringing back regular and honest, independent voices. Nope, it's too late. There's a split. I'll tell you this, man. If they get rid of 230, and it really does result in more censorship and more banning, it would just accelerate everything.
I think, though, when we talk about that and also the other pork, though, that we somehow stopped talking about.
Pakistani gender studies.
Yes, all of that stuff. That's another way in how they pass stuff like that. You're seeing an example of that. It's like, how can we get them to focus on that? Like, okay, even, all right, they want a little more cash, bam, a little more cash. And then it's like, all right, well, we'll give them $2,000. But all of that garbage is still in there. Yeah. Right, it's still there, and we're not. I don't want to say we're not talking about it, but it's like, oh, hey, we're getting a raise on this free money that we just printed out thin air. But we're not talking about. That's how it gets passed. It's like, if I can get you to focus on that, they do that with titles of bills all the time, where it's like, hey, this is supposed to be this, and then someone that actually reads the damn bill is like, wait a minute, that's not what that is, Rand or something like, that's not what that is. I actually read this bill. It doesn't say do exactly this, and that, and then they're like, well, he's a racist because he didn't vote for this, the you like black people bill or something like that, and there's all types of garbage in it. Yeah.
If they took the entire omnibus and just broke it up and spread it around,
atomized it.
No. I mean, just broke it up and said, we're going to give everyone an equal share. Every working American.
Oh, you're talking about like in the price point that it's at right now.
2.7 trillion or whatever divided by 225 million working Americans. Everybody gets like $12,000. 12 grand.
Another thing we need to realize, we need to stop saying that the government is giving us something. They're not. They're borrowing it from us, which we're going to have to pay back
Future
in
generations.
taxes or with inflation for us or our children or our children's children are going to have to pay for this
that's
in one
guaranteed.
way or another.
They're stealing from future generations, and this is why
they're not giving us nothing.
It's they'll devalue what you have right now, and they're selling off assets of unborn people. That's exactly what they're doing. And the fact that people are just so okay with that, to me, is what's so freaky about it. You break it down to them like, dude, that money is not there. This whole myth that you think, well, I'm just getting my taxpayer money back. Your money's gone. They don't have it. They don't have it. They're in the red right now and still spending it. They don't have your money.
That's why we got off the gold standard. Because they borrowed your money, spent it, and when you asked for it back, they said, here's a piece of paper. It's good for the money, I swear. And people are like, all right, I guess. I don't think you can go back on the gold standard at this point. A lot of people wanted to. Didn't Trump try appointing that lady who wanted to get him back on the gold standard?
I wish that would have happened.
That would have been
so
hilarious,
fun.
man.
Yeah.
You know, I just kind of want, like, I don't know if, I think the system might be too far gone, but it would be nice to be back on a track where you can understand what's happening. And we're at this point now where it's this massive Ponzi scheme where they just deficit spend into oblivion, which results in like the interest being higher than the ability to even pay anything back. So that means there's rapid inflation. It's a big Ponzi scheme. And the reason it won't collapse is because they have guns.
If Donald Trump was real, he would have appointed Ron Paul to the head of the Federal Reserve.
Yep.
I talked to Ron. I'm like, Ron, would you do? He's like, yeah, I'll do this.
Of course he do it.
That would be. I think that's what we need.
If they wanted to, if they would have. If they really wanted to take an axe to the system, that would have been the guy that they went with in 2012 to 2008 as well. But no, like
he told me he would do it.
Yeah, of course I know it will. But seriously, guys, it's like trying to get people to it's like literally pulling teeth out of people's mouths, man, trying to get them to understand that money's not there. It's like they don't get it. I get in these fights with can I say boomer conservative? Is that like offensive
That's
or something like that?
Slur.
Okay, all right.
So you can say I'm kidding.
All right, yeah, I'm kidding.
Is, I don't know.
I'm kidding, yeah. But no, and I talk about Social Security. And they like seriously think, well, if we're gonna take away Social Security, then I want my money back. And I'm like, bro, your money's not there. The money that you were being taxed, you've been stolen from, which is a decent portion of your check, is gone. They don't even pretend that it is yours. What's happening right now is you're living off of the current generation that's going to end up in the same position. This is why it's a literal Ponzi scheme in that regards. But people don't understand that, and I guess it's because maybe the state has babied them and given them whatever they wanted.
Check us out. So Luke and I were talking about getting this big farm property and what we could do if we had like our own cryptocurrency. And it's like we want people to come and contribute and help us build stuff. And I'm like, how do you actually create value in a currency? How do you actually convince people it's worth something if you can just print it out of thin air? Why would anyone be like, oh, I want some of that? Why? You're just going to keep printing it. No one's going to want any from me.
Yeah.
Well, for the background, we were talking about creating two kind of civilizations.
No, that was your
with
joke.
A lot of government, one with no government, and we're going to think of ways how to make currencies. We were talking about cryptocurrencies and using some kind of way to create value. One idea I had was to make one working hour a value token that people could use and trade within the community. That's what some local communities in Breckenridge have started to
but
do.
listen. But the problem is, so first, the context is like doing some kind of show where we're like, who would succeed? Regulation versus no regulation. And the problem with that idea of the hour is if someone can just print the money arbitrarily, then why would I do work for your currency if you're not working and just printing it out and getting whatever you want from me?
That's what's happening right now.
I know.
That's literally what's happening
You
right
just
now.
described American fiscal
Yes,
policy.
I know.
Good job, Tim.
Right, but
That's why I complain to people when they're like, just print more. When Rand Paul comes out and he's like, why not 20,000? Why not UBI? And I'm like, yes. People don't get it.
No.
You can't just do that.
Yeah, that's true.
But
But
that's happening.
but that's why, and it's funny you guys are having that conversation though. That's exactly why it's important that the market be free enough for folks that are even smarter than everybody that's at the table right now to be able to figure that out and answer that sort of question. This is why people acting freely is so important, because we don't got all the answers. It's actually these very, very arrogant, it's not just progressives, but it's especially progressives that are very arrogant enough to think that they have all the answers. And because they can't, it's one of the biggest criticisms of what maybe Luke and I more so believe in, is that, well, they figure, well, I can't possibly like conceive an idea or see that world actually coming to fruition. And I'm like, How arrogant of you to think you're the smartest person to ever live, that just because you can't see that being done, it just can't be done at all.
It's kind of funny. Sorry, Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, what we could do in a community is we each print our own crypto. And then, so if you wanted me to do something for you, it would be 5 tokens. You would give me 5 tokens, or I would give you 5 tokens for your product. But if I paid you an Eric coin, I only had to give you 4 tokens. So the value then would create a value system for all these different currencies that we'd start intertrading. Like I would give you 5 tokens for 4 if you're going to give me Eric tokens, so that we still come out even, except you get an extra token out of it. So, and then you're gonna still get tokens for your labor and get paid, and then they could pay you 5 tokens of else. I think that would be how you would do.
But see, like this and the fact that I love we having this conversation, because these are the conversation that innovators have, right? And these are, and this is why it's so important for the market to be free enough so we can have that conversation. The state says, well, I have the smartest people on my team, therefore what I say has to go. Never mind if it hasn't worked. Never mind it's the possibly the most dumbest idea. It doesn't matter. I have the monopoly on law.
Well, this is the important thing. When we're moving towards an ideology, we're moving away towards a merit-based society. And whenever we see governments, whether Germany in World War II or the USSR before World War I, whenever they push ideology more than they do merit, there's always a lot of destruction, because there's always a controlling of individuals, not based on their intelligence, not based on their skills, but based on their obedience to the state. And it's interesting that they call themselves, individuals call themselves progressives, when in human history you look at innovation, progression, it's made when there's very little government.
Absolutely.
And then these individuals who want more government are calling themselves progressives. Like that to me is just mind-boggling. It just shows you that we're kind of living in a 1984 double-speak world where words have double meanings now.
The left, I think it was Cenk Uygur who said this, the progressives always win, that the left always wins. And a bunch of people corrected him, saying, no, liberty always wins. A lot of these issues people talk about, going back to like the fight for freedom of speech in the Vietnam era, was about liberty, individual rights, civil rights, gay marriage, all this stuff has always been about individual liberties and the rights of the individual to do things. It's not been about your authority as governor of New York to shut down the economy, destroy people's lives, and put up checkpoints around your city to make sure nobody comes in. And that almost sounds like you're just separating yourself from the rest of this country. We talked about divorce before. A lot of these places are already doing it. But here's I want to move on to this subject of what happens when people finally have had enough. Because we did mention this a little bit earlier in the show. What happens when people have nothing left to lose? What happens when we start seeing more and more videos of people who are desperate? We see these stories about the woman beating the cop with the baton because she didn't want to wear a mask. People are angry, and they don't care if you guys ever hear that story about the dude who walks into a bank and he has a note. The note is a robbery. He's demanding $1. He threatens them and says, "Give me $1 or else." Then he goes and sits down and he waits for the cops to come and arrest him. You know why? Because he had cancer and he was going to die. And he said, "It's the only way I can get treatment." That's why he did it. And the left likes to bring it up, saying that's how messed up our healthcare system is. And I'm like, I don't think that's a good example of how messed up our healthcare system is. But I do think it's interesting that our prisoners get better healthcare than, say, like this old guy. So there's an interesting point. But this dude was desperate. So desperate, he did a staged kind of robbery to go to prison. What happens when people have nothing left to lose and they don't care about prison?
Yeah, that's when the violence happens, right? When people are down and out. And I think a lot of people have taken for granted that stability. I know a lot of folks, even especially progressives, talk about change and hope and stuff like that. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't want that, right? A lot of people are comfortable being able to see exactly where they're at and where they're going to be able to go. It's when you get that sort of unfamiliarity where people are like, I don't know when the next check's going to come. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay
they're gonna take
next bill. And then that's when they start to erupt.
Well, here's the news. Ex-Pence aide turned Trump critic, very concerned about January 6th violence. So this Hotel Harrington, announces they're shutting down for 3 days when this D.C. event is supposed to happen. And apparently it's because the Washington Post claimed the Proud Boys were using it as a headquarters. The Proud Boys apparently came out and said, that's not true. We haven't used that place for months. And they're saying now, on January 6th, Proud Boys are going to be showing up in plain clothes, not wearing their iconic shirts. And some of them are going to be dressed like Antifa. So there's a very serious concern that there's actual planning going into what's going to happen. I think one of the biggest mistakes, I was thinking about this, one of the biggest mistakes Proud Boys could make is going and fighting with Antifa. Right now, I don't think that matters. I don't think Trump supporters' fights are with Antifa. It's with the establishment government and the Democrats. Antifa's biggest mistake would be going and fighting with Trump supporters. It's a really interesting thing. When I see, there was a funny post by Shoe on Head. You know Shoe?
Yeah.
She posted people, I think it was in, I can't remember which state it was. Do you know where this was, where they're setting up the guillotine in front of the politician's house or whatever?
I think that was in Mexico, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in Mexico, I think. And she said, Cons, this could be us marching to Congress together or whatever. And I said, when Trump's out of the White House, the enemy of my enemy is my friend is going to start looking real good to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. My thing is, though, and why I know a lot of folks rag on me because I say I will not ally with these types because I know next is my back against the wall.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they're going to put me up against it because ultimately it's about – that's why I don't want to have them using me as my useful idiots. But we got to talk about that, though, because it's a legitimate concern. But I also think it's a lot of leftists over this course of this last year have been trying to – for the sake of legitimizing their own bad behavior, trying to say that the other side would do what it is that they would do. Now, keep in mind what all they've been doing for the past, months, right? Definitely this year. Of course, maybe we can talk about what's happened before that, but let's just focus on what happened post-George Floyd, where you're talking about hundreds of spots. And in some cases where you go in like the Portlands and the Seattles of the world, you're talking about months at a time, right? That they were just rioting, acting up. So the reason why they do that is so they can say, "Hey, look at them and what they do." Right? Look at them when to basically to try to absolve them of the bad behavior. I think it's more likely. Let's say I don't want to say likely, but I think it's more likely that they would have that you probably see a first big powwow with guys that are quote unquote on the right, but more so with the police because they're more when they protest. This is why you don't see when generally they go do their thing. You don't really go see Wendy's get burnt down or something like that. Generally, when the quote unquote right links up, that generally doesn't really happen. They're more precise with what it is that they do. So I get the desperation, but that desperation may have them more so turning on and maybe I'm just being an ideologue right now, but that desperation may have them actually looking to the people who the police more than
right. I don't think Trump supporters they're planning on going to DC, setting up tents, occupying and protesting, shutting things down. I think it's going to get pretty big. I mean, you got this guy going on MSNBC saying, it's going to get violent and I'm really worried about this hotel shutting down. Man, that's a crazy signal. But what do you think's going to happen? You think Antifa are going to be the ones blocking the Trump supporters from having their protest? It's going to be the police.
Yeah, exactly.
And you think Trump supporters are going to be like, okay, officer, we're not going to protest and defend the president. Not anymore.
They've done that for a while, and they know that that's not work. That's not been an effective thing.
When Trump was tweeting Antifa bad and the cops were fighting Antifa, they had the Trump supporters, the Proud Boys, everybody at their back saying, do it, we got your back. Now the people blocking the Trump supporters are the cops, and the cops saying, get out of my way. I'm here for Trump, not for you.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, could it, I wonder how likely the possibility is that you get the cops fighting two different groups on two different fronts.
That's interesting.
It'll be really different, but I wouldn't be surprised because we've already seen right-wing groups fighting with cops. Not nearly as bad as how the left does it.
But that was unheard of, though.
Right.
That's why it's important to notate that because that's like not a thing. Even back when the Tea Party thing was going down, like it wasn't. You may had a skirmish here and there, but for the most part, that was not what happened.
Could you imagine if there's like a guy with a Trump flag and he's yelling at a cop and there's an Antifa guy 10 feet away?
And be a nice photo. Whoever gets that photo is going to be a millionaire.
But they're both yelling at cops. And the Antifa guy looks over and sees a Trump supporter yelling at the cop, and then he's like, "I'm not going to get involved in that." And he keeps yelling. I'm going to ignore that. He's not going to. Normally, the Antifa guys want to go fight the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys want to go fight Antifa. But what happens when they're both protesting the government? It's going to be interesting because I think one of the problems is tribalism, and both sides are trying to use any ally to get control of the White House. The problem is, for the left, you see Donald Trump. The establishment Republicans don't like him, but they'll wait. They'll stand there and say, okay, fine. Trump's in charge. We'll bide our time. Trump supporters just want Trump. So that creates a good bit of unity between Republicans willing to just say okay to Trump and Trump supporters who are fighting for Trump. On the left, The Antifa people are like, yeah, we'll fight with you to get rid of Trump, but we're not supporting Biden.
Yeah.
There's no unity on the left over who their candidate is. So they're in a weakened position.
Yeah.
So if the fight is against Joe Biden and Trump's gone, then Antifa's not going to be fighting with the right. They're going to be fighting the cops.
Yeah.
And then the Trump supporters aren't going to be fighting with Antifa because they're both fighting the establishment.
And that's the interesting thing. Like, I don't know if that's going to be a thing that's going to happen, because I feel like I saw too many times where they kind of, during the Obama presidency, I don't know if they've gotten amped up enough to maybe go back on that, but during the Obama presidency, there were a lot of instances in which they could have went that route, and they decided not to. In fact, when it came to the rioting, that was one of the things that Obama certainly was. He had no issue coming out and being like, okay, y'all need to stop. When the Ferguson thing and all of that stuff went down, he had no issue being like, okay, y'all are being stupid.
People need to remember, Occupy Wall Street started under Obama.
Exactly.
Major riots across the United States started under Obama. Today, I sent out a meme with a young girl with a Biden hat saying, "Thank you for saving us." And then Biden is there looking at her in disgust saying, "I'm literally going to do everything Trump did."
That's all you should have, yeah.
And we have to understand, Biden is the epitome of the establishment. When you look at his cabinet, when you look at his administration, he has Goldman Sachs, he has large tech executives, he has executives from all the worst possible elements of the corporatist world possible. People are going to get a very rude awakening to who he really is, the policies he sets forward, and when he gets into office, he's not going to serve you. He's going to serve the special interests that put him in there. And when he does that, especially with all the civil unrest we've been seeing, it's been brewing, it's been building up. I think it would be naive to think that there's going to be peace civilly in the United States coming forward from here.
Oh yeah,
This is why the Democrats rely on low information voters.
Yeah.
It's why they want the voting age to be 16, because these people who are in their 20s who voted for Biden aren't old enough to remember Joe Biden killing kids in foreign countries and Obama's extrajudicial assassinations.
Dumb people are also, let's just be honest here, more violent. So when you have a whole bunch of dumb, violent people get angry, you're brewing a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, no, they were there useful idiots. I mean, we saw that with Black Lives Matter not getting a seat at the table at their little civil rights. It's more of the establishment civil rights guys that were linking up with Biden, and Black Lives Matter didn't get a seat at the table, and they were all frustrated, like, we demand a seat. And I was like, dude, they've been using y'all for useful idiots for the last, I don't know how long. It's not like they care. Did y'all not understand much of what y'all didn't get much, y'all didn't get anything out of Biden out of an Obama presidency. What makes you think that you will be prioritized? They may campaign on that, but what makes you think they're going to prioritize you once they get in?
But I'll tell you, we talk about dumb, violent people, right? There's actually a better way to predict if someone's going to be violent. Do they got anything to lose? Well, a lot of these young people don't. They got no jobs, they got no family, and they're in debt.
And a worthless degree.
Worthless degree. Now they're seeing all this violence. Look at the George Floyd riots. People are locked up in their concrete cubicles that smell like sour milk in New York City.
Perfect storm.
And so we had the comedian Ryan Long. Well, let me finish. We had this comedian Ryan Long on the show, and he was talking about when the protests and the riots started happening. It was like, well, I can go outside now, right? A lot of these people in New York don't have kids. So they go to jail. So what? They lose their job. Well, it doesn't matter, right? They're angry. They have nothing to lose. Well, now we have Trump supporters and regular people whose businesses no longer exist. They can't feed their kids even if they want to. They got nothing left to lose. And so that's when people snap.
Another kind of vague scientific term brought up here is that also people who don't get laid also are more violent.
Very true.
And we have seen also a huge increase of the use of OnlyFans and also other online adult stores.
People who don't get laid get violent?
Yes. That's
Really?
one of the
Men
big
especially.
It's
Yes.
your intelligence. It's if you're not only your intellect but also your social intelligence, your social IQ, that also matters. And if you're not getting some, you're going to have to release that pent up energy somewhere else.
If you look at some of like the Portland mug shots, you can kind of.
Well, like there's that meme about male feminists, like they're predators, right? There's that meme Reset the Clock. And it's because a lot of these guys think in order to get with a woman, they got to pretend to be a feminist.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm so feminist too. Look at me. And then the
Absolutely.
women don't respect them. And then they get angry when the women won't hook up with them. And then we get all these stories, story after story, of these male feminists turn out to be rapists or abusers.
Yeah, creepers. The biggest creeps
Yep.
are the ones
And-
pretending to be something that they're not, and they're always saying, but they're like, but I said everything she wants me to hear. I'm doing all that, and like, what do you think? People don't respect you patronizing them, and this
Yeah.
is the whole thing when it comes to the whole Black Lives Matter. There's so many examples of this. There's so many initiatives by the establishment, by the elites, for you not to be a true, genuine person, for you to be corporate replicas of what they want you to be.
Bingo.
That it's leading to dysfunction.
Yeah.
And this dysfunction is a byproduct of this curated algorithm, of this mainstream media, of this entertainment industry that is shaping people's minds to be destructive. Because when you're destructive, you, of course, are going to have to be obedient to the big overlord that is going to beat you over the head and tell you exactly what to do.
Here's what you need to do. You need to eat right. You need to exercise. You need to meditate. You need to take care of yourself,
You need to
focus on
get some.
yourself, and think.
You need to get some.
And, but no,
Correct.
listen. Yes, but if you start with improving yourself, there's a lot of people. We were talking about how good it feels to to take care of yourself. People don't realize, and I was reading this post on Reddit about being fit and having exercising, that a lot of people don't like exercising, right? What they don't realize, these people who don't exercise, is that if you exercise consistently, you feel good all the time. You wake up feeling like $1 million. You're like, you feel like you could punch a bear in the face and the bear would run away. You're like, you feel great. But these people don't take care of themselves. The first thing you got to do, take care of yourself, do some exercise, eat better food, portion control, stop, think, read, meditate, study yourself, analyze yourself, be honest with yourself. And then you'll get some.
There's a
Because then you're going to be a nice, well-rounded person.
This is something we were
Good point.
talking about, maybe highlighting the vlog on, having a vlog about bettering yourself. We were talking about maybe doing ice baths and saunas, and we're getting a workout
Sensory
cage.
deprivation.
So, yeah. So we're talking about doing all that stuff a part of a vlog, and to just be examples of trying to be the best version of ourselves.
But that's what progressives, like definitely the mainstream ones, that's not what they want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is why they actually shun those who try to put some sort of responsibility and accountability in the individual, right? And it's obviously in all the policies that they advocate that, hey, you don't better yourself, be destructive, be dysfunctional, and we will give you this. And the minute you start trying to show some, shed some light, we're gonna strip everything away from you. So, like I said in yesterday's show, they incentivize you to fail. Progressive policies and why they advocate what it is that they advocate, you need to look at the fact that what are they scared of? Why are they so scared of people being free? Why are they so scared of liberty? And who protects these ideas, the academia and the educational elites? And why is it that they don't place the emphasis on, okay, instead of the state or this group of people moving your world, can you move your world for you?
Did you just fat shame me, Eric?
I did. Okay. I just to be sure, I'm not one of those body positive guys.
That's right.
But think about the body positivity stuff. They're basically saying, you don't need to change. The world needs to change for you.
Good luck.
Think about how
Yeah.
narcissistic
Good luck.
that is. You
Bingo.
know what I mean?
It's not progressive either.
And
That word's being
insane. It's
misused.
really
destroying the whole health, the medical industry, with overloading it with individuals who
How-
think it's good to be
Listen,
unhealthy.
Yeah, and then they
How-
want
how
free
do you-
health care.
Yeah,
on top of
exactly.
that.
How
no.
do you combine universal health care with people encouraging you to be out of shape?
Unbelievable.
I think
Healthy at every size,
I think
they
it's
say.
absolutely hilarious to have the people who talk about fat phobia also telling you to wear a mask.
Yeah.
There's a contradiction there that people need to realize is happening there.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Go ahead.
The people who are dying of COVID are the overweight people.
Yeah.
They want you to wear a mask because they're the ones who are going to die.
Oh, that's
So
a good point.
what it is, and to go to that point, what it is again, they don't want to be responsible for themselves. They want you to be responsible for them.
Listen,
Yep.
Eric, you got to wear a mask because if you choose to go outside, you might get me sick when I go
When
outside.
you go outside,
Yeah.
right? That's exactly what happened. But no, like accountability is for me. That's been liberating. That's one of the most liberating things that when I had my political awakening, and one of the most the things that I realized. Being accountable for my actions and being responsible, that's the trade-off with freedom, right? Is that you don't have that government guarantee. You don't have that it's not even a safety net. It's what it is encouraging you to not be great, right? Mm-hmm. And one of those things that I realized was that, okay, there are things that are within my power. I would always go out of my way to find, even in failure, right? If I wanted to achieve something and I didn't, I always look to what could I have done to better my situation? I say this as an athlete. I got my tail. I remember getting the doors blowed off of me. My first freshman year track meet, Eastern Kentucky was where it was at. I thought I was I had state qualifier coming from Texas, 5A. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm it. First indoor. I never ran indoor track. First indoor track meet, I got the doors blowed off of me, right? And it was and instead of looking at it's indoor. I suck indoors. I can't run indoors. I had to look at it from a standpoint, if I wanted to get better, and over the course of my collegiate track career, was okay. What was it that I did? Was I in my drive phase too long? Did I come out of my drive phase too early? There's little stuff like that to try to improve my life, but that's not what people want. What people want is for someone else to promise them that we will make your life better. You just be be a loser for all they care. You are not going to be held accountable for your actions. You are not going to be held responsible. And that can be said for a multitude of different things. This is one of the hard things that people don't want to discuss when we talk about poverty. They always talk about folks in poverty as if they are the only ones, like they got there by way of some, I don't know, white man sitting around the corner pulling the strings and they made them be poor. I've seen people ruin their own lives that are in that poverty population.
This is what I think is funny, I always thought about people who play, say, like World of Warcraft, and they make a character a hunter, and they go on quests, and I'm like, why don't you just go hunt, like be a real hunter? And I look at these video games where people play a character and they get that dopamine reward. They're not improving themselves, but I understand there's a real career in playing games and stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm not disparaging that, but I think for me, I don't like watching people do things. I like doing things. Yeah. I guess some people like watching, but for me, it's like, wouldn't you rather go out to that field and actually go hunt the boars?
I mean, when you talk about gaming, at least with me, I think that kind of the accessibility, I talk about this all the time, about that's ruining gaming too. It's like all these mediums are being ruined by this concept that we see this in like the fighting game community, where people that are in fighting the games that got too hard, taking away the combos because they want everybody to be able to fight.
Have you played Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite?
Yes.
I threw that game in the trash. I grew up playing Marvel vs. Capcom. If I was not familiar, it's a fighting arcade game, and when you're playing, right? There's some, Eric, you've played Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Yes. You do air combos.
Yes.
You jump up, you land in front of the bad guy, your opponent. You press down and fierce punch to knock him in the air, and then you got to do a combination of light, medium punches to do your air combo. And then I get Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, the new version. I'm all excited. This is a few years ago. And I put it in, and the only thing you got to do is press circle over and over again. One button. And I was like, I'm not even playing. And he jumps for you. It's all automatic. I'm like, it's not a game anymore, dude.
Exactly.
What is it? I just deleted it.
We're doing a running competition tomorrow. We're putting it on my Instagram up the hill here. and one thing I wanted to add to what you were saying is they don't want you great. They don't want you free. They don't want you independent, because when you are, you can't be subjugated. And that's the name of the game. And a lot of people have been brainwashed, have been tricked, have been conditioned, have been programmed to accept their obedience to individuals that take advantage of them and screw them over.
And who is they? The aliens.
Yes.
Moving on to the next story.
Okay, finally we get to talk about the aliens.
The best story.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. The they is not really the aliens. But you guys can't see this video. But I don't know if you guys saw this. In West Virginia, there was a weird UFO spotted in the sky that looked like, people are saying it's a UFO crashing to Earth because there's like flames coming out of it. Check out this video. So this video was uploaded on the 27th. UFO crashing to Earth, caught on camera in West Virginia. Now, a lot of people have said it's easily explained. What you're looking at is the contrails of a jet reflected in the sunlight. The issue is the trails end. If you look up these sunset contrails, I don't know, this channel is Ghosts That Hunt Back or something. If you look up contrails from a jet in the sunlight, you'll see there's like, it looks like fire. But the water vapor that comes out of the planes stays there. In this video, it's really weird. It looks like there's two distinct streaks of fire coming out of some weird object in the middle. Nobody knows what it is so far. Now people are saying it's an airplane. I don't know for sure, but I got good news for everybody. Because we have this omnibus bill, right?
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden people are like, look, I'm here for aliens, man. I don't know what you're talking about, omnibus bill. Okay, well, hold on. 5,500 page bill gets sent to Congress, And somebody snuck in, I'm assuming they snuck it in, a provision in this ridiculous bill nobody read, a provision mandating that the Pentagon reveal their information on UFOs. At least they got that, and they could have put. There's so many things that could have gotten into this. I don't know how these government bills work, where no one reads it, but someone knows what they put in there. How does that work? Could you just be like,
what if the aliens are writing the bill?
How does this bill work? Right? Do I get to just like write a provision saying I get $1 million and just slide it in? Nobody reads it and they vote for it.
Basically.
So why doesn't anybody do that?
Whoever slid that in, thank you so much. I appreciate you very much, and we need more of you. Now, will a lying government tell us the truth about aliens? Well, that's a whole nother
let's
issue.
see what they say over at New York Post. They say President Trump's signature Sunday on the $2.3 trillion COVID-19 relief and government funding bill started a 180-day countdown for the Pentagon and spy agencies to say what they know about UFOs. The provision received very little attention, in part because it wasn't included in the text of the 5,593-page legislation, but as a committee comment attached to the Annual Intelligence Authorization Act, which was rolled into the massive bill. The Senate Intelligence Committee, chaired by Marco Rubio, said in a comment, it directs the Director of National Intelligence in consultation with the Secretary of Defense and the heads of such other agencies to submit a report within 180 days of the date of the enactment of the act to Congressional Intelligence and Armed Service Committees on unidentified aerial phenomena. The report must address observed airborne objects that have not been identified and should include a detailed analysis of unidentified phenomena data collected by A, geospatial intelligence, B, signals intelligence, C, human intelligence, and D, measurement and signals intelligence. The report must also contain detailed analysis of data of the FBI, which was derived from investigations of intrusions of unidentified aerial phenomena data over restricted United States airspace, and an assessment of whether this unidentified aerial phenomena activity may be attributed to one or more foreign adversaries. Well, if they didn't include aliens, then does the Pentagon just not get to tell us if it is? Because they put foreign adversaries. They say former Pentagon and legislative officials confirmed Tuesday to the publication the debrief that the package begins the clock on UFO disclosures. So there's a lot more. Here's a quote from, we got this guy, Chris Mellon, former Deputy Assistant Director of Defense Intelligence, told the debrief the newly enacted Intelligence Authorization Act incorporates the Senate Intelligence Committee's report language calling for an unclassified all-source report on UAP phenomenon. This was accomplished in the joint explanatory statement accompanying the bill. Assuming the executive branch honors this important request, the nation will at long last have an objective basis for assessing the validity of the issue and its national security implications. This is an extraordinary and long overdue opportunity. So I want to go back to that image of that weird UFO that looks like it's on fire and crashing down Earth. What is it? We won't know, but maybe we'll find out soon, huh?
I don't know, man. Like, do y'all believe it's like aliens in general? I don't
think it's aliens.
No.
You don't think it is?
I believe in aliens. I don't know if that is aliens
but you
specifically.
But
after talking to some high-level government officials that have
think they're
personally
here?
told me that aliens do exist, yes, I personally do believe.
Do you think they're here though?
I think so. Yes. Not in this room specifically.
Are you
But
sure?
again, Ian's sitting right there.
Are we sure?
We're not sure. That's probably me.
I mean, we got Ian here.
Ian, yeah.
I mean, again, we can't definitively prove this without a shadow of a doubt. There is some circumstantial evidence that I think is somewhat convincing. But this year, we have to also understand that there have been a lot of government admissions when it comes to aliens. This is not the first time that this subject was brought up. We have learned this year that the government lied about a secret Pentagon unit that they said never existed.
That's right. That's
that
tracking
it did
this stuff,
existed.
right?
That's tracking a lot of this stuff. So they actually are doing something. They do have some data. Will they share it with the American public? That's another thing. But I think it's probable to believe that something else is out there. Do I have definitive proof? No, I do not.
But isn't witness testimony circumstantial evidence?
Yeah, it's circumstantial.
And we got what's that dude in Canada?
He's the
his
former
name?
defense minister of Canada. I got to look up his name to tell you.
And
exactly.
he said Yep, they're aliens.
Well,
and then you got the Israeli Space Security Agency guy saying the same thing this year.
Yeah,
just
the
recently.
former head of the Israeli space program came out and said very similar things to what the former Minister of Defense for Canada said, is that there's an alien federation, that there's aliens trying to keep the peace.
The Galactic Federation, right, Tim?
I was thinking something. I was playing my PS5 the other day, right? And there's this game I saw a trailer for. And I think it's called Stray. And I guess I don't know what the game is about. I guess you play a cat. But when you see it, and on the wall it says "Rip humans," and then the people are actually all robots. And I thought about like, what would happen if humans created a bunch of robots to do tasks, but then humans died off? What would those robots do?
Just keep going.
And like, what if aliens created humans, but then left, and now humans are like, that's why we're like, what's our purpose? We don't know. We have all these crazy philosophical questions, and the reality is we just don't have one. You know, the aliens came, made humans left because they didn't need to use human labor anymore, and now they're chilling, watching, be like, what are they doing? They're like building cities. Why? They're just not doing anything. You know?
I have the same question with this one that I had with the one that happened in China. You know, it apparently crashed down to the earth. Why don't we go to the site and see if we can find any pieces of it? Did the whole thing burn up? Is there absolutely no evidence left? Like, why can't we find some kind of something to tell us what it might have been? Because if it was just a jet, it's up in the air.
Yeah, I think we should start telling us what was there.
Right.
Start giving us the evidence and proof of what was actually there, and then let the people decide themselves. You don't have to tell us who, what, where, and what specifically you think happened. Just show us exactly what happened. And I think that level of transparency, that level of accountability is dearly needed within our government. And I mean, this is something I personally want. I was there at the Storm Area 51 protest, eagerly waiting, live streaming.
How'd that go?
And it was like a cheap man's Burning Man.
Boo.
But I'm still shocked how we went from Storm Area 51 in 1 year to social distance, stay home, to stop the curve or whatever in just a matter of a year.
I'm gonna tell you guys a crazy story. Do you guys ever hear about the O'Hare Airport UFO?
Yes, from you.
So I worked for American Eagle Airlines. It's a regional airline for American Airlines from 2004 to 2006. And then shortly after I quit, a bunch of people working at the airport saw a UFO come down from the clouds and hover in place for a few minutes and then shoot straight back up to the clouds, punching a hole in it. Everybody at the airport saw it. Everybody working saw it. So I knew a bunch of people still worked there. I had friends who worked there, and they were like, dude, we saw it. It was crazy. I knew one dude who said, so there's a road outside of O'Hare Airport called Mannheim Road. And my friend said people in their cars were stopped, like waiting at the light. And then when it came down from the sky, people got out of their cars and were just staring at it. Like just like watching it. This is before the era of, you know, like the iPhone and a lot of smartphones. Some people had phone cameras. And so there was a pilot who looked out his window and he took a picture of it. And the photo actually exists on Google. You can pull it up. It's difficult to find because a bunch of people made fake photos.
Yeah.
And it's a real bummer, but the real photo, you can still find it. And you can faintly see it. The crazy thing is, where are all these people that got out of their cars on Mannheim Road and just stood there staring at this UFO? And then they said it was a weather phenomenon. And I knew people who worked at the airport, they were like, dude, no way. Like it came down and hovered and you could see it. And then it sort of punched a hole in the cloud. What was that?
Magnetic craft.
Magnetic
Aluminum,
craft?
maybe. Lightweight, yeah, I would imagine. Something being propelled.
You're actually describing what the UFO is.
Yeah, like a fusion power source and being moved around by a magnet or something.
So does aliens.
No, it's human.
Oh.
It's Tesla tech.
Could be, yeah. I mean, there's many people with many different beliefs. There's religious people who are talking about demons and other kind of energetic entities out there. There's, of course, conspiracy theorists who are saying UFOs, aliens. There's other conspiracy theories saying that this is advanced government technology that they're keeping away from the people. There's many different belief systems out there, but I think, again, we should start with the government telling us the truth and stop classifying and hiding information from the general public.
The problem
I think
is,
that's a great start.
Clapper lied under oath blatantly.
Yeah,
under oath.
and they lie about everything.
Yeah, so I have zero
So
faith.
what would you, even if they did come out and say, and I think they know that, right?
They don't have to say anything. Just show us what happened.
Yeah, well, that's the thing,
Stop
though.
hiding.
Who knows what that's going to be, though? You know, the way they approach it is that I don't think they're completely oblivious to the fact that, okay, if we say that something is going to happen, they don't trust us enough to tell the truth, right? So, like, is it even if they came out with something, said this was what it was an alien.
The fear is that if aliens revealed themselves to us, the world would tear itself apart. And I hear a lot of people but hold on, people in America might be able to accept it people in the U.S. might be like, "Wow, I guess aliens
If
were
we
real."
can accept like
But-
there's like lizard people.
But
We-
what
we
what,
already
what,
are
no, no,
tearing
but
each other apart.
No. What about other cultures and other countries that are way more fundamentalist and would go insane and press the nuke button and just go nuts? America,
I don't think that would happen.
you think everyone in the world would be like, "Oh, aliens are real," and start holding hands and singing under the rainbow?
No.
No,
But,
I'll tell you what would happen. The aliens would come here, and then everyone would be in competition to get access to that technology.
Of course.
Imagine if the
We
aliens...
already are. This is why
imagine-
Space
China
race.
built one of the largest kind of satellites in the world, trying to read signals from outer space.
It's a weird argument because it's like if dogs could talk, people would go crazy. So maybe dogs
what-
can
what-
talk.
what do you mean?
Well, I mean,
What?
are you purporting that
What?
there's aliens? Because if there were, they wouldn't have revealed themselves. Because
If aliens reveal themselves, the world will tear itself
yeah, but
apart.
that's not.
That's one of the
that's
fears
not
of
an
aliens.
argument for there being aliens. Because if
I
dogs
don't
could
know- I
talk,
don't
the
know
world
your-
would rip
what do you-
itself
what do you-
apart.
what does
If
that have to
people
do- what
could
do you-
fly, but they never flew.
Ian,
just-
what are you talking about?
If I could levitate, but I
What
never
does that have to do
levitate-
with anything?
Well, are you making the argument that there might be aliens because if they revealed themselves, they would drive people crazy, so
No,
they're not revealing themselves?
I'm saying there is a fear that if the government did tell us the truth and revealed to the world aliens existed, it could cause international
But if the
conflict.
government told us that dogs could talk, it might also make international.
Except they
insanity.
can't. What do you mean?
Well, and there's no
And what
aliens.
does dogs talking have to do with light speed travel and ion cannons and
You're
teleportation?
creating like you're suggesting like
Dogs
a
talking,
near
like-
impossibility might be real.
No, it isn't.
Dude, aliens visiting Earth is like a 0.0000000%
Actually, you're totally wrong.
What?
Do you know what Fermi's paradox is?
Give
Do you know
me
what Fermi's
any
paradox
evidence.
is?
Any evidence that
Do you know
there
what
might be.
Fermi's paradox is? The actual likelihood that intelligent life exists in the universe is
I believe
substantially
that.
high.
I believe that.
And so there's questions as to why we're not encountering them.
Because they're
one
far
of them
away.
is called, I think it's called the Great Zoo hypothesis, that they treat the Earth like a forest preserve and ignore it. There's a bunch of theories about this, but the mathematical probability that aliens exist and that they're substantially more advanced than us is mathematically very high. And so the question in Fermi's paradox is, why haven't we seen them yet? And there's a bunch of different hypothetical answers as to why that would be. So we don't know. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying aliens are here. I have no idea. We have no evidence to say that, except for the fantastic reports of flying crazy vehicles at O'Hare and or whatever. But that could just be military tech, and that's substantially more likely it is. But as I was pointing out, one of the concerns as we're talking about the government keeping secrets is a fear that if the world found out right now about aliens,
That's what they say, though.
Right,
That's why it's classified.
right? Because people would lose their minds
Do
when
you
they
think they
realize.
would lose their mind, Eric?
I think it goes back to culture, because that's a great point. I think yes, we have this sort of diverse culture in America, but when you talk to other cultures about no matter pockets of Africa and like that see the world just fundamentally different than what it is that we do, I think that they would react in a different way. I think a lot of Americans come to terms. I think it'd be a lot more curiosity than anything, because at that point it's like, if we get a confirmation of something that we assumed, that we've seen all this, it's embedded in our culture, aliens, right? We got movies and
X-Files.
TV shows, like it's this assumption that, well, we have this assumption in how they look. Hell, they might look like us, who knows how exactly they will look, but we have all of these theories. But I think a lot of Americans assume that that's a thing. Now, would they rip each other apart is an interesting question, but I think that it would be more than anything, if there was an emotion, it would be more so a curiosity. Because it's like, if you confirmed right now, let's say if the government said, all right, we ain't got Trump on his way out, scorch earth. Say, y'all, I'm not going to be the president, bet. Bam! Here's the proof here.
Here's a video.
Here's a video. Here's a. And matter of fact,
and it's Trump giving thumbs up, standing next to a gray
and it's
alien.
like all 4K HD and everything. You can't.
They're eating McDonald's, high-fiving each other.
It's as advanced as you can possibly get. I think at that point, I know, at least speaking on I'd be like just curious, like more than anything. I was like, I wouldn't want to fight my
hold
neighbor.
on.
Yeah.
What do you think would happen if a video came out of Trump hanging out with aliens?
Oh, man.
China would go nuts. China would declare war or something.
That's
They'd
a
go
good
crazy.
and I think that's where it goes back to the culture, because it's like, at that point it's like, oh wow, they have access to this advanced sort of
Yep. They're getting hooked
being,
up.
right? oh my God, this is the real thing. So now, so who knows,
Well,
man? That's a good point.
According to these two high-level government officials, the Canadian and Israeli one, the aliens are the ones that are specifically stopping nuclear Armageddon. That's according to, again, the former head of the Israeli space program, the Canadian Minister of Defense. And he's saying that the humans are not ready for them, but the aliens are here preventing a larger conflict from expanding.
I was watching some crazy thing about orangutans fishing and stuff, you know?
Okay.
we're more technologically advanced than they are, watching them do these things. Like there could come to a certain point where we see animals fighting in such a way that we would stop them. We would be like, man, this is crazy. Imagine if we were watching, you know, it's 1,000 years in the future and we're flying around with teleport packs and jetpacks, and then the orangutans now have nukes. Yeah, we'd probably stop them. You know what I mean? We'd be like, dude, you're going to blow everything up. Chill, what are you doing?
Y'all are too advanced.
So
the aliens would come back, and you're saying, like,
what I'm saying is it makes sense that aliens would stop us from blowing ourselves up because we'd be screwing everything up. Yeah. You know, there's a relatively small amount of planets that sustain life and are in this position.
Assuming that they were here, which is a grand assumption. I don't think that they're here.
That has nothing to do with what I just said. I said
You're saying
it would make sense that an advanced species would stop a lower.
It wouldn't make sense that there is an advanced species here.
Okay, so anyway, my point, what you're saying has nothing to do with my point, is that it makes sense for human beings to stop less advanced races from blowing themselves up with bombs. Like if you saw a bunch of orangutans playing with dynamite, you'd probably be like, we got to stop though. That's crazy. And you'd probably stop them by any means necessary because you got a bunch of, you know, chimps and monkeys playing with explosives. You would stop them.
Sometimes, but when monkeys hunt themselves in the woods, you don't.
Yeah, because they're not playing with dynamite and TNT.
If they were
like you ever see that video of the chimp with
maybe,
the AK-47? You ever see that one?
The fake
it was
fake,
CGI. Yeah. Like if you saw like an orangutan or a chimp pick up an AR or something, you'd be like, "No, stop!" You'd take it from it. So that idea is interesting. It makes sense that a sufficiently advanced species or creature would stop a less developed from playing with crazy explosives.
I always think why do you think, and I've asked all of you guys, why do we think that the assumption is that if they are to exist, they're more technologically advanced than us?
Well, but no, but
it's all insanity.
It's that if any alien species is advanced enough to come here,
then they will be more advanced than us.
Yeah.
Okay.
To such an extreme degree that a lot of people need to understand a couple of things. Like, can you communicate with an ant? Not really. I mean, we can play with the pheromones and make them walk in lines and stuff, but you can't exchange meaningful ideas with them. We can kind of understand what they do and why they do it after being studied. But one of the things, I was watching this crazy documentary talking about alien life and the components for life and the misconceptions people have about aliens coming here and walking around. Like, they wouldn't even survive in our atmosphere. Like, by all mathematical calculations about the variety of elements we know of, they could have to exist in some kind of weird methane atmosphere or something. But even if they did come here, it's like the level of advancement from a species, able to travel, well beyond our understanding, in all likelihood would either be substantially more advanced than we are. Okay. And that would be like you trying to explain to an ant how a highway works.
But do you think, like, on, let's say, other planets and whatnot, like, that there are lesser advanced beings that are there now? You think definitely that's the case?
I think obviously you look at the oceans of Earth, humans are incredibly lucky when it comes to creating computers and cameras. Like, if we look at dolphins, man, they're smart, right? But they don't have thumbs, so they can't do anything. Not only that, imagine if dolphins had arms. How are they going to start a fire to actually separate elements and create wires and components? They can't do it underwater. So even dolphins, octopuses, they can manipulate stuff. They got, but they can't do anything because they're underwater. I guess theoretically, you can go to like a lava vent and hold something close to try and separate the iron out of the rock or something like that. But we get fire. We melt down, a rock, we can separate the elements, and then we can slowly from there start doing crazy things. I guess there's probably different chemical reactions that could happen underwater, but there's probably planets with water on it where you've got intelligent beings that just live underwater and can't do anything, can't build a spaceship and can't leave. There's actually, is it Titan? Triton? What's the name of the moon of, is it Saturn?
Triton, I think, yeah.
Is that Saturn or Jupiter? Jupiter?
Saturn's moon is Titan, isn't it?
Titan?
Yeah.
There's like one of these moons they think could actually have liquid water because the gravitational pull of the planet, I don't know if it's Saturn or Jupiter, is like causing it to stretch back and forth, which creates friction, which then creates liquid water. And they say there could be life because where there's liquid water, there tends to be life. But even if it was intelligent, what's it going to do? Break through the crust and then fly in outer space? It wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, so it's just there.
Right. So there's probably a lot of intelligent alien life that doesn't have the ability to create tools and do anything like that.
There's a lot of probabilities here, but there's one constant. The government lies.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the moral of the story.
That
The
is
government
a moron,
lies,
yep.
and with that, we'll go to Super Chat.
Yes.
So if you haven't already, smash that like button and subscribe to the notification bell, and we're going to read what y'all have to say right now. And here, actually, I like to go back to the earlier, make sure I get everybody, but here's a really good Super Chat. Daniel Yuri says, what religion and economic model will the aliens follow?
Ooh.
What if they're like the Ferengi and they're like hardcore capitalists? You guys ever watch Star Trek Next Generation?
Yeah.
Man, they did really, really great writing with philosophy and the consequence of technological advancement. For those that aren't familiar, the Ferengi are aliens that bought their way into interstellar travel.
Yes.
Whereas most of the species developed it through science, they were like merchants who met an alien species that had warp drive and said, we'll buy it off you.
Enterprise, baby.
Yeah, man.
Raising
Show's
living
good, huh?
standards, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
I love how the left calls it space communism. It's literally
Yeah, it's not. It's literally not that.
Not
people
even
own.
close.
I got into an argument about it, and they were like, no one wants for anything, and I was like, dude, people have prime real estate on the beach.
Yeah.
There's like they actually show scenes where people have houses on the waterfront in San Francisco. Like, is that just you won it in the lottery? No, people of merit get it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. Let's see. Daniel J. Corica says, divided we fall. If as a nation we don't come back together, we will fall. I mean, yes, if the country breaks apart, then it falls because it literally broke apart. But I think individual states could thrive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we accept this idea that states are way smaller than, or countries way smaller than the U.S. can thrive. So why couldn't individual states thrive? And so,
I'm nervous that we're being made useful idiots. That when we talk about, because I agree that if we become divided, it's over. And when we talk about the left and the right, I think that idea is being seeded into us from. It's insidious
China.
to think that it's China, the Chinese Communist Party, using the internet to make us get more clicks and likes when we use those phrases because but people like drama, and so they're drawn to this like easy to visualize paradigm. But I think that it's so dangerous. Like Mao used rightists as his primary focus of who he went after in the Chinese Cultural Revolution. They were called rightists. He was talking about people on the right, and he used that to rally the country to violence. So I don't want to use those phrases anymore.
I would say right offhand that it is just a useful, like, kind of shorthand to keep track of who's who, and we do have that useful
Parent tribes.
spectrum.
All right, let's see. Let's read some more of these super chats. Joel says taxation is theft and listen to backwards.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate the love. Appreciate that.
Dan Saw F says, Tim, tannerite is really easy to make. It takes some ice packs and some aluminum powder, and you can buy it on Amazon for less than 40 doll hairs. So what is that? Do you guys know what that is?
Tannerite?
You don't things that go boom.
Oh, that's awful.
oh.
What is
I
that?
don't know if you want to just be sharing all that.
Good to know.
If YouTube allows someone to super chat that, they ban a whole bunch of words.
Yeah.
You want to allow that? Thor O says, dim fool, please be in DC on the 6th. America needs you now more than ever. I know you're a milquetoast fence sitter, but this is not about left versus right. It's about we the people. We need you. Well, I mean, look, if we go down to DC and we do a show and we interview people who are there and they'll speak and then they'll come up to our hotel or whatever and we'll talk to them. Like that can be more effective than being further away. I think the worst case scenarios will be close enough to DC to get like a post interview with some prominent people. But there's a bunch of combination of factors. The internet's got to work. We got to have the system set up and tested. And then there's security issues, which are very serious.
I'm for it, so we'll see what happens.
I'm hearing, I don't even know if I should say this, but I should probably say it as a warning. I'm hearing people are going armed. And the problem is you can't bring guns into DC.
Mm-mm.
But I've seen posts on the internet where people are talking about they don't care. Because if 10 million people show up, they're like, "What? That's bad, man. That's when things get crazy."
I got mixed feelings about it.
I got negative feelings
Yeah,
about
I'm
it.
starting to like question if we should do this.
Well,
what's the
whether
purpose
we should
of
do
being
what?
there, of going there and making a physical presence? Is it just causing more stress than it needs
I'm
to?
not going there
Being
to
able
do anything
to-
political. I'm going there to do a show, to talk to people who are there and ask them why they're doing
Yeah.
it.
Being able to report on the ground and see exactly what's happening away from the spin, away from the editorializing is key and important. So that to me
What
is
Trump-
why it's important to go.
Trump has put out multiple tweets. Be there. I'll see you there. It's going to be wild. And then people are talking about bringing tents and look, an Occupy nonviolent civil disobedience, I think is great. If everybody just, open their businesses or whatever, then we would all just carry on. Everything would be fine. But there are a lot of people who, like I said, they're getting desperate. They got nothing left to lose, and that's when it gets scary. So I don't know what's going to happen, man, but I'm hearing scary stuff. That's why I said security is a very serious issue. That might not be a good idea to go down there.
Yeah.
For everybody else who wants to protest, you have your First Amendment rights to go and protest. But when I'm hearing a lot of stuff, Antifa is going to get down there. It's going to get spicy, whatever. It gets worrying, man. All right, let's see. Jonathan Westcott says, hey, Tim, Black Votes Matter is running ads here in Georgia saying they'll be running raffles for people who show up to vote. Straight up admitting it now because they think no one will call them out. Man, that's crazy. Black Magic says, government is just a social construct for when a group of people wish to band together to perform immoral actions while justifying those actions as morally good. Change my mind. What's the smallest form of government? Tribal government?
Well, non-existent
The
one.
family?
No. Yeah, the family probably.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
Or
Probably
the
family.
individual.
And no, the individual isn't a government. You can just act on your own. But when you have a group of people who agree on certain terms and someone's in charge, maybe the family is the smallest form of possible government. Family's not a bad thing. The government is not you can't just say government is bad as a blanket term. What we have in the United States, we got a serious problem.
Yeah,
with
too
government.
much federal government, I think, is
Yes.
the big problem.
I mean, even local governments are crooked. It's hard to scale up properly. Corruption just becomes a part of the system. So I don't know how you solve for that problem. But look, a tribal, a group of hippies on a farm probably got a form of government that works just fine. They have rules. If you violate the rules, there's some kind of punishment. You're off the farm. You're leaving. You can't work. You can't live here anymore. Exile. But it gets really difficult when you can't go anywhere. Like the United States is controlled entirely by the federal government. So it's like if you break one law in one place, there's no you get locked in a box. And so I think exile is actually preferable to imprisonment, but you can't do it because people have nowhere to go.
Did you see Spain is putting people on lists? I know this is a bit of a
If they don't wear masks.
tangent.
Yeah.
Or if they don't get the vaccine, I think.
Yeah, they're
If they don't get the vaccine. All right, let's see.
Speaking of government.
Sterling Jennings says, when anyone, YouTuber, right-leaning thought leader is asked if they would run for office or start a movement, they always say no, but I would support someone doing it. How is anything going to get done if the people who have influence defer to others? That's a really good point. Because, I wouldn't want to be in office.
Me
It sounds
neither, man.
awful.
Do you, Luke?
I would hate myself if
That's
I was
the
a politician.
problem. You look at these
Yeah.
Democrats, they want power and they'll take it. And you look at the Republicans too. But listen, the Republicans aren't arguing on behalf of what the voters actually want. That's just a fact.
Well, you never want to give power to someone who's hungry for it. You always want to give it to someone that doesn't want it.
Yeah.
I would love to take it and then make the system so that when we're gone, they don't need us anymore.
Well, the problem is I don't think I know what's better for someone else. I can't make that determination, and
Exactly.
this is why I don't want to be a ruler over someone.
You'd be a good ruler because of that.
Well,
Yeah, but how are you going to be a
that's
ruler?
That's the conundrum,
Yeah,
right?
Defer to your subservience.
That's the conundrum.
how can you be a ruler without being a ruler is just by being an example. That's why I've been preaching and talking about decentralization and personal responsibility. If we have enough individuals that are responsible for each other, we won't need government to interact and inject itself when it's not needed. So that to me is the key, and that to me is a lot better than me becoming your overlord telling you what to do.
Yes.
All right, Nuke the Ice Cap says, what I do enjoy about the obvious overreach of authority, left and right are looking at each other from a different angle. Yeah, we want the divorce, but these politicians are rightly worried. The thing they fear the most is staring them in the face. Interesting. Justin Bowman says, I wasn't big into politics until my games, comics, shows, and movies became politicized.
Yep.
But in some ways, I'm glad it happened, or else I'd be just another consumer. By the way, Tim, it's pronounced Bookman. Oh, okay. I winced when you read my name when you read my chat yesterday.
okay.
Hi, Ian, Luke, and Lids. Be
Bookman.
safe.
Bookman.
Bookman.
Okay.
What up, Bookman?
Rye Chaser says, Eric, I'm worried about the future of the entertainment industry. I'm currently in film school, and when we pitch our film ideas, everyone only talks about how diverse and political their film will be.
Oh my God, man! I know, man. It's like for those of you guys who aren't like comic book guys, it's rough right now. Like, not just in but you see it happening in the shows. It's overemphasis of diversity. So you have this tokenization of all of these characters, classically white characters. They want a black version. They want a gender neutral version, but it's even worse in the books. Like we're getting gender neutral Flash.
Wait, what?
Yes, that's about to be a thing.
What?
Yes,
Oh my
gender
gosh.
neutral Flash is about to be a thing. All sorts of.
Does he flash
weird
his
shit.
gender? I mean, his genitalia and
Well, listen,
changes
listen.
it?
Why are they doing that?
Well, it's they are trying to appeal to people that don't buy books, right? It's these writers are cocky. I think y'all. For those of y'all that follow me on Twitter, you see me go back and forth with these guys. These guys are narcissistic and they're cocky. They're not even in the business anymore of trying to sell books or try to make something for a consumer. That was the difference between comic books. Now, even the ones that they say were political, it's that they were maxed. It was balanced, and that it was maxed enough to where it wasn't overtly political. Like only when it was like going at Hitler and stuff like that.
Captain America was
Right.
the most politicized.
Yeah.
Right. But people forget, like when people always talk about Hitler, right? But forget what Captain America, when he started, prior to
beating
that,
up Nazis.
he was beating up Nazis. But before that, he was beating up communists. He used to be called the Commie Smasher. People forget all about that. But no, it was way more balanced. Whereas to now, people are writing books, doing shows they're trying to lecture the audience, right? It's about trying to make sure that you agree with them socially. So they got to tell their story. That comes second, right? The actual story, it doesn't even have to make sense for them. It's about what kind of social spin can we put on this? Can we focus on racial matters? Can we focus on other social matters and try to beat you over the head with that, as opposed to making something that not only appeals to that market, but can appeal to even a wider demographic of people? Because why, like my character, like my favorite comic book character as an adult is Batman. I couldn't be further from Batman. Batman's white and he's rich. I am neither of those. But I love him, right? There was the ways that there's attributes and traits that he has. Like Flash was my favorite character growing up. He was a track athlete.
Yeah.
So that was why I connect. My mother gave me, I was one of the first books that I read back in the 90s, Flash book.
You ever see Static Shock?
Yes.
That was diversity done right.
Yeah,
I
like
love that
it was
show.
an authentic, new,
Yeah.
original character. And
And-
I don't
and-
know any comic book fan that's like, they don't want that. What they don't want is a black version of this character that I always know. We want originality. This is why we like Luke Cage. This is why we like Static, which is why we like
dude.
Storm, Bishop. We like these characters because they're original, right? That's what we want, originality. But they're in the interest of
Recycling. Hand me down
hand-me-down
heroes.
character. That's
Yes.
exactly what it is. Yep.
That's what always makes me like, isn't that more offensive?
Absolutely.
To, instead of saying we're going to write original, compelling stories for a larger audience, they're like, we'll just give you the old ones we don't use anymore.
Yep, that's it.
That's
We'll just
crazy.
recycle them. We'll just say they have the same symbol, suit, and everything. Now the guy just is all of a sudden homosexual.
I did like Into the Spider-Verse, Miles Morales.
Well, my thing about
That's okay.
I hate Miles, by the
You
way.
don't like
But
it?
no, I hate Miles. I hate Miles. I hate him in the books. I hate him. He's just like, I come from a different perspective, right? Because I'm a book reader, and Miles Morales, and he's been around for a while now. He's just a reskinned Peter Parker. There is
Right.
absolutely nothing from his character we've seen over the long years of Peter Parker being young, being we've seen all of that from him. There's little quirky kind of comments and all of that stuff is what we've seen out of that. What I more so appreciate is when they try to make a more so newer character. DC creates Naomi or Silencer or something like that, original black character or something like that. That's what I value. I'm not necessarily in the interest of taking a historically white male character and saying, we'll just race
But
change.
now they're making those. What was that? Dora the Explorer superhero? You know that one? Yeah. That Marvel did it. I think it was Marvel that did it.
She's fat.
The gender neutral, non-binary brother and sister, whatever.
Oh, Snowflake and
Safe Space.
Safe Space.
Those
yeah.
were
And
New
then-
Mutants,
and-
right?
and then you-
yeah,
but
and
then
they
you-
did
but-
New
but wait,
Warriors.
wait.
New Warriors.
But then,
yeah.
you, but then you had
Warriors.
Dora the Explorer.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was a fat Latina chick with a backpack that
Yeah.
has like all this space in it to pull out random stuff.
Yeah.
Like literally, it was Dora. It was like the weirdest thing ever.
And they end up not putting that out, thank God.
Oh, they did?
No, they did.
Wow.
They end up not putting it. That was so bad to where they were like,
Snowflake and
they were like,
Safe
okay,
Space.
Oh,
guys,
These
we're
are the
not.
new Warriors. What
Yeah,
was- is that what
there was
they-
a new war. It was
Inking,
basically a new
dude.
war. So now, so you're talking about all those original New Warriors kind of were being put to they were there in the background, but it was about these new characters, Safe Space and all these weird
Safe
guys.
Space.
Yeah.
Could create like barriers or whatever.
It was
Yeah,
one of
it's
the
so
worst. That's like one of the worst examples.
Yeah.
The worst
Yeah, that
examples.
was
The
terrible.
entire
And you know-
super group of them.
We need. I think. If you look back at the creation of a lot of the comics and superheroes, these ideas were original. The Hulk.
Absolutely.
If he gets angry, he
There
turns
was
into a
nothing
giant
like
monster.
it before, and that's why people were so attracted to it.
But now everything's recycled and
Yep.
regurgitated.
Yep.
You know,
Like-
Rob Liefeld started to do. No offense, Rob, if you're listening. I thought Cable. I loved Cable in the '90s, but man, he was a trash character. He didn't do anything. He was a cybernetic. He had mental powers like
Travel
every
through
other-
time.
Oh, apparently he could travel through
Yeah,
time.
no,
So
Well,
that's-
no, he had technology that could do that.
he had a cybernetic arm. And then in that whole Rob Liefeld would like recycle like every group had a Wolfman in it, and then they made Brigade for Image Comics, and it was like
Yeah.
every group had like a guy like this, a woman, you know, a Wolfman,
Where-
a big guy in the background.
Yeah.
Where like we need some original superpowers. It's like everything feels generic.
Yeah,
nowadays.
and it's not like everything. There's a lot of creative people. There are a lot of original comic book guys that have kind of deviated from a DC kind. I have them on my show all the time. Former guys that were writers of DC and Marvel that are creating original characters. And that's what I think we need, and the world's ripe right now for it. Right now, I think more than ever. Before, maybe not so much, but right now, they are so bad. For those that don't keep up with books, when I say like comic books are the worst that they have ever been. Like when I talk about content wise, they are the worst that they have ever for both mainstream comics and DC and Marvel. They don't sell. And there's a reason why they don't sell. They're insulting their fans. They're insulting the people that are longtime readers for these. Again, it's about lecturing the audience is more so what they're into.
What about manga though? Do you read manga?
No, everybody keeps telling me like that's where it's at. It's actually in some cases starting to sell more, even in America
Yeah.
more
'Cause
than
it's
what
legit.
they.
I mean, I haven't
modern comics.
kept up with any recent manga for the most part, but I read all of Naruto and Shippuden and Death Note.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of other stuff. Obviously, Bleach. Those are kind of obvious, but that was a long time ago. I was reading all those. They were just better stories.
Yeah.
Like long.
And they don't worry
continuations.
about that. And it's interesting, right? They can write original female characters, right? That don't have to be
Yup.
rehashed versions of a male character. They do that so well. You see that in anime as well. So that's why I can't. This whole world, all the ideas have
listen.
been done, and I'm like, have you watched an anime?
Huh.
But
Yet?
their powers are unique.
Unique,
and weird.
exactly,
Like
yeah.
how weird was it? I don't. You've not seen any anime or anything like that.
I've watched anime, manga. No,
You watch Naruto?
yes,
It was the weirdest thing watching Sasuke have hands grow out of his back.
yeah.
It's like, if those are not familiar, it's like it's a ninja, and then he gets his power and like hands and fingers grow out of his body. It's the weirdest thing ever. But I'm like, at least it's original, man.
Yeah, no, that's
It's
what.
like comics in the U.S. have become generic.
Yeah, there's the same rehash, and this is why I can't let them make it, because you do see examples of that manga, anime, where the Japanese are able to make original characters, original concepts that we have never seen before that just knock it out the park.
One Punch Man.
Yes, there's another
amazing.
one. Yes, there's another one. It's
New-
like they're new. They're like, these are things that have come out within the last decade, right?
And it's not coming out here.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you also have My Hero Academia.
Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Another one. Like all these.
Great. That was really
like
good.
all these newer like
Crazy.
these are things that have happened within like recent years, and they knock it out the park. It's because they know what they're doing, and they're writing stories for their consumers that will appeal to them. Whereas to America, is adopting the West is, or more so like with
My Hero Academia is about superheroes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's really interesting to see an anime about superheroes, and they're doing superheroes better
than America
is doing
Yeah.
superheroes.
What you
That's
think
crazy.
we'd be the mecca of that?
Yep.
But it's not like the talent isn't
PC,
there.
man.
Yeah, that's
Get
what it
woke,
is.
go broke.
Yes, every time.
That's
You know what
it.
I'd like
Every
to
time.
see? We were conceptualized this with Desmond Meeks and Philip Wainwright, a couple of my friends, while we were talking about stories based on a piece of technology, like a piece of advanced technology, and it follows the tech, like the gun or whatever, and it keeps getting regular people will carry it, and you'll follow their story while they have it, and when they get killed or whatever, they lose it. You follow the tech to the next person, and so maybe there could be an entire genre of comics where there are no superhumans, but there's just super tech.
Yeah.
Are you going to write a comic about the adventures of super male vitality?
Yeah. We'll start with super male vitality. You can get it at Infowars.com.
No, don't.
Infowars Life.
Michael Malice
Life.
left it here, and now it's a joke.
I'm about to
and
eat
it's
it,
gonna-
actually.
And people are going to start buying it like crazy, and Alex is going to make so much money because we're making fun of it.
The genre is called space punk.
Okay.
That's a
Phil-
real thing, though.
I don't know if it's been invented
Yeah.
yet, has it?
yeah.
That's Philip Wainwright's idea, I believe.
Space punk?
Yeah, and if you're working on it, Phil, sorry that I loaded it, but yeah, let's
All right, let's read
make
some
comics.
Let's read some more super chats. Razgriz says, proud Wyomingite here. They can try and ban guns here. In 2012, we were looking at buying an aircraft carrier and making it a felony for federal agents to enforce gun control. We will do it again. I mean, yeah. Well,
It's my kind of
why
party.
didn't they pass that law?
Sounds great.
It's my kind of party.
All right, let's see. Augustine Uribe says, "Damn it, forgot you were live streaming same time I was. LOL. As if it's any consolation for anyone. Here in Texas, they say everything is closed down, but the reality is everything is still open and nobody gives a hoot. So happy I left California."
Yeah, man.
I don't know if Texas is the right call because too many people are moving to Texas.
Well,
It's
yeah,
gonna
but
turn-
they're going. This is what I say about Texas is they're going to. Don't worry too much. Just like the whole, all right, Texas is going to turn blue. The reason and obviously it ended up being a big dud. They're going to the places that are already blue. First of all, it was actually not that long ago where Texas was dealing with, we had blue senators, Democrat senator. That was not a thing that happened. It was not that long ago. Let's say that. But they're posting up in Austin, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. Those spots are already blue. So I don't want them coming here and running everything into the ground. If they're at minimum posting up like in Austin, that doesn't gain them anything because they're in Austin. Like that's already blue.
Yeah.
It's when they go everywhere else that is the problem.
Michael Holder says the problem with the freedom society versus dominatrix society is that the control freaks' desire to control never stops at their own borders, China. It would only be a matter of time before the authoritarians would start oppressing the free staters.
But that's
what's happening,
right? But that's the thing, and that's why a lot of people are scared of like secession. There is like secession is an anti-defense. It's not anti-working together, right? A community or this concept of militias. That's not what it's about. So just because we say you can't rule over us does not mean that okay, if we go to war, we won't have each other's back or something like that. That already happens right now. Like we have these sort of agreements with other. Now some of them are crooked, but you get this idea that okay, like we like what it is that you do to some extent. So if said country tries to come take us over, we got each other's back. That can still happen. It's just like we're just saying like you don't get to rule over
But
us.
think about it this way: we have an alliance. We have NATO.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like so
it's the same concept.
And,
It's like
and France doesn't dictate what we do in New York.
yeah, exactly. It's the same concept.
Yeah, I mean, we could still have mutual defense, and I think people forget that the people who usually want to be left alone are usually the people who are armed and are more able to defend themselves than the small people who like to be dominated and love dominatrixes.
The United States of Canada and Jesus Land. That's the
Yes.
meme. That's the meme.
I could be convinced, but I'm very hesitant about this idea of a peaceful divorce. I think that if we tried to secede, one, that the American government would invade immediately like they did in the Civil War. They call it the War of American Aggression,
Right.
or whatever.
But I think that was most likely to happen when it happened. But now with the advancement of technology and how the weaponry is so it's advanced enough for us to be able to hold our own. And I don't believe like we're just going to get overtaken. We saw what happened with the rice farmers.
The other,
there's
Vietnam.
5 billion guns in the
Yes, what
United
I'm
States
saying.
5
alone.
billion?
Yes.
my other worry would be that like the Chinese government would invade the seceded Union, and then the United States would also invade to defend it, and it would become a proxy war, and then it would be leveled.
Well, the
Vietnam
red states
was.
have their own military bases and National Guard.
So what Ian is saying is that the Chinese government would influence the dominatrix side. And I would say that already has happened.
No,
Right,
I'm
right.
saying that they
The
would
China-
invade the secessionist,
no.
the freedom side.
They're not engaging in third generational warfare.
That's what I was
It's
just
fourth
about
and
to
fifth.
say. That's exactly what I was about to
China would just take control of the dominatrix society because of their
Interesting. So they would fund the secession. They would arm the secession. You'd get this
that's
foreign
what they're-
influence
that's
on the
what they're doing.
arming of the right. That's what we did in Vietnam.
They're doing it. China absolutely
And if
is
there was-
influencing American politics in a bunch of negative
Oh,
ways.
that would be the best thing in the world for China if the Americans split apart.
I mean, depending on what you want from the world, might be a good thing
China's
for you.
Communist Party would become the most powerful force on the world on
Yep.
the earth if
Yes,
the
they
United
would.
States split
Well,
apart.
they already
the
are
good-
going to do that
and the-
under a
and-
Biden
and-
presidency.
Exactly.
I hope not.
They're
They
doing
will.
they're doing beaching drills for Taiwan. You think Joe Biden's going to do anything about that?
Joe Biden's
no.
main advisors are talking about how a bigger, growing China is great for the global economy.
How do we
And they're
defend against
investing in that country,
You
and
let
they're
people be free.
enforcing laws and deals.
Walmart is investing into Wuhan as we're speaking right now.
How would we defend against it?
But that's why I'm saying if you break up, I mean, you like. I don't think people understand the vast amounts of gun laws and at the federal level that exist right now.
Yeah.
Right. I think if that was broken up, you'd see more people wanting not only to, from a creation standpoint, but wanting to invest in that sort of weaponry that would have them ready to rock, right? Like, I'm talking what you consider more these automatic weapons and stuff that they consider machine guns, all tanks, which, you know, depending on where you're at, you kind of can get that sort of stuff. But we'd be more inclined to invest in that, certainly if they got the hell out of the way. I think the biggest myth is that we need them to protect us when we as individuals could invest in ourselves. But that's why they want the dependency. So we get to thinking like that. That's exactly what they want. It's like, well, you need us because if we get away from you, then, everything's going to fall apart. And I just simply disagree. I do not agree that that is the inevitable thing. I just don't.
They're dominatrixes that don't know a safe word.
Yes. Impulse 818 says, "Hi Tim, how come you haven't mentioned at all the war criminals that Trump pardoned last week?"
Yep.
Hasn't come up, but it came up now, so I think it was bad. I think it was wrong. But, you know, Obama pardoned a bunch of crazy people and blew people up. So I think for me, it's like, I didn't spend 4 years wearing a MAGA hat, waving a Trump flag. I was, you know, fairly critical, and I think the media was just insane on Trump. So it put me in this position where it's like, dude, I can say it's bad that Trump did these things with missile strikes in Syria, criticize him for it. John Bolton we bring up all the time. The commando raids in Yemen, the death of, it was an 8-year-old American girl that was killed in a raid ordered by Trump. These bad things all happened. So
that was related to Anwar al-Awlaki.
Right, exactly.
So,
it was a sister.
So yeah, the sister was killed by
Trump has done a ton of bad stuff, and over the past couple of years, it's been getting better. Trump pardons people, and he does a big wave of pardons, and I mean, you know, I think it's bad.
Who did he pardon?
It was Blackwater people, right?
Yeah, he pardoned a bunch of
massacred
Blackwater mercenaries that were
Yeah.
responsible for an estimated 17 deaths of innocent civilians. They were found guilty and were serving a pretty severe sentence. And this is kind of a slap.
When did they go to prison?
I don't know the exact details of exactly. Let's pull that up if we can and look up the details here because I think that's pretty important here. But to me, this symbolically is a big slap in the face of Julian Assange, of WikiLeaks, of Chelsea Manning, and all the other individuals who want accountability for Edward Snowden, who want accountability for the war crimes that the United States has sometimes committed. Now, again, we have to see this through, you know, the rule of law, and a court found these people guilty of ending 17 innocent people's lives, and that's a big severe crime. That's a big severe implication that Trump is saying it's a-okay for him, which is a little daunting.
It was 2007, so this was under Bush.
Yeah,
these people are nasty dudes, man, and there's a lot of really messed up stuff. America should not be over there.
Yeah, well, he's also friends with the head of, the former Blackwater. Now it's named something else. Yeah, Eric Prince. So, it doesn't make him look good, in my opinion.
Scott says, Tim, I've heard you give the best summary of the non-aggression principle of anyone who rejects its universal moral applications. Why do you reject it? How do I reject it?
Do you believe in the non-aggression principle?
Define the non-aggression principle.
You defined it better than me, according to that super chat.
Well, that's why I'm saying I don't understand how I reject it. So let me hear what you have to say, and I'll tell you what I think.
Well, non-aggression principle is just a basic principle that you believe that ideas shouldn't be forced onto people. There shouldn't be any aggression forcing someone to do something that they don't want to do. That there shouldn't be force and extortion used to push a certain idea, right?
Being initiatory, that being the most important point, right?
So there's a couple ways to look at it. If we're talking about violence and harm, whether it or force against another person, be it physical or coercive, well, yeah, don't pick a fight with somebody, don't mess with other people, and live and let live. If you want to talk about a government system and you've got a big city like New York that's been around for hundreds of years, well, now we got a very much more difficult and complicated question.
Yeah, but that's what's always been the misunderstanding of the NAP is that it's like this sort of end all. Right, and that's not what it is. What it does is it's just fundamentally understanding what the principle is that we want to uphold, and that is that it is absolutely wrong to initiate force upon someone else. So if you're not being threatened, if you're not having someone hit on you, and I think most people can agree with that. The straw man comes in and they say, well, what about this instance and this instance? And I'm like, yeah, I get that. There's a questions or that we can come up with answers to. The NAP never pretended to be like the end all or that if it exists then nobody's going to commit. No, it's in fact, we look up the Robert Murphys of the world. We talk about privatized law for that reason.
Nothing is perfect, but you have a reduction of harm under the NAP principle, which pretty much asserts the rights of individuals not to get aggressed upon.
Yep.
A lot of people are commenting saying the Blackwater guys were convicted for political convenience based on weak and inconsistent evidence. That was from Amenti. JM says Obama made villains out of the Blackwater guards for political purposes. The media didn't start lying in 2016. AM says they did not kill 17. The government made all that crap up and paid Iraqis to lie because Obama wanted out of Iraq and had a vendetta against Blackwater. I don't know, though. He didn't get us out of Iraq.
Yeah, he kept the soldiers there and in
bolstered
Afghanistan. And I mean, you're making a claim there. I mean, I will say that I will legitimately look at it, but I haven't seen any evidence. But again, I'm not perfect. I'm not always right. If you think I'm wrong on that issue, please send me some evidence so I could look at it. You could message me on Twitter, Luke, we are change, and then I would love to see any evidence you guys have. And of course, I will change my opinion based upon that.
Regarding non-aggression, what do you guys think about forcing aggression on people that litter?
Well, that's why we want private ownership, right? So if that person owns that particular land or groups of people, right, if they homestead it, which would be the way that they owned it, or if it was a transfer of ownership by way of purchasing it or the land being given, yeah, like that, there's a case to be made that is absolute, because you're violating the private property. See, that's what aggression is, right? That's essentially breaking it down, is the violation of the private property right, be it in land, be it in self-ownership. So you punch me in the face, that's an act of aggression. But the same can be said for a contract violation, or something like that. I think aggression in a libertarian sense, which is a good question, by the way, in a libertarian sense, is also like very misunderstood. No, Luke, you had something you wanted.
Well, again, if you're living in a society where everyone is responsible for themselves, you're not going to want to go around causing troubles for people, right? A lot of people don't want trouble. A lot of people just want to be left alone. A lot of people just want to work. A lot of people just want to live their lives and be happy. So if there are, I mean, nothing's perfect. Nothing, again, is 100%
and libertarianism doesn't pretend that it is.
Yeah. Definitely by its candidates.
It makes me think of family life and how kids won't clean their room unless they're forced to. Like, I would never clean my room unless my parents were like, you're going to clean your room. It's dangerous. You're going to trip over trash trying to get out if there's a fire. Clean your room. And in society, people will just throw banana peels on the ground if there's no recourse.
Well, I mean,
force.
Well, that's the thing, though. If there is absolutely a case to be made. If I have private property, I own said thing, and you just go in there and start dumping stuff on it.
What about city streets?
City streets. I mean, that's the same thing. Those should be privately owned. So if that
by
whoever wants to make, whoever provided it to service.
But what if they want to shut off access to
what if they did? And then someone else could build a road.
But I mean, that would take time. What if they
it would.
What if they cut off your access to work?
But what's the incentive for them to do that? Like, I know we're talking about what
vindication. What if you angered them in a deal that
and they just shut off the road?
Hold on. I gotta make a ref call. What if the police block a street and say shove off?
That happens
They
now.
do that all the time.
Happens now.
Or you can't go here if you don't have a mask.
The cops in New York created something called a frozen zone.
That happens now.
It was just made up. And
They
they'd be
used
like,
it against
you
me.
can't come on the street. It's frozen. You're like, what does that mean?
I just want to know what the incentive. I know a lot of people talk about roads, but I'm like, they go to these extremes, and I'm like, what's the incentive there? Like, it's always, what if this happens? And I'm like, human beings don't operate like that.
Use Vanderbilt.
It's a purposeful action.
Use Vanderbilt as an example, because he owned the railroads going into New York City, and he decided he didn't like the way they were treating him, so he cut off access to New York City, and he starved the city out. And they realized we can't let a guy own the railroad anymore.
That is, I don't have that recollection of the
1850s
of the railroad system.
There's antitrust laws for a reason, because people were doing stuff like that.
But they're not used, especially with big
not
tech.
now.
They're
well,
abused
no, it's
now.
not even that. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's stop. Let's backtrack. Let's talk about the railroads, though. Was the state involved? All right. So how much of the rail? I'm assuming that you're familiar with the story. How much of the railroads did that man own?
He owned, as far as I know, he owned the railroad.
He owned all of
he
the.
Built
all right,
it.
all right. He owned all of the railroads. Are you familiar with, like? Because again, I'm not asking this sarcastically. I genuinely want to know. What was the scenario in which where that one individual controlled all of the railroads? I would have to. I want to know that, because I have a hard time believing that one person owned the railroad, and there was no state involvement.
Yep.
I have absolutely. I don't believe that was the case. I just cannot believe that, because that has virtually never happened anywhere. It didn't happen with Bell, which is the closest thing that we can point to. in America, when we talk about actual monopolization, and it didn't happen with the bail monopoly. So I don't understand why when we talk about these instances, I want to know where that came from. I'm very curious.
Well, another thing we have to realize is humans have an initiative to be cooperative with each other. They have an initiative to work with each other and to be in a way where they are able to work problems out with each other without, of course, using force, because when you use force, everyone loses. So
Bingo.
I see a huge reduction of harm. It's not going to be perfect. Some people are going to get
And
hurt. Some people are going to get screwed
pretend
over.
like it won't happen.
You can't act like you're a communist and everything's going to be solved overnight, but it's surely going to be way better than the system that we have now.
And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Even if I don't or anybody in this room doesn't have the answer, doesn't mean someone else won't.
Yeah.
Here's some info. Vanderbilt was a shipping guy. He made his fortune in shipping.
Okay.
And then it says in the 1850s, turned his attention to the railroad, bought up so much stock in the New York and Harlem Railroad that by 1863, he owned the line. He later acquired the Hudson River Railroad and the New York Central Railroad and consolidated them in 1869.
Okay. So like I said, I want to know more about that particular process. I want to know more about what more so it allowed him. How was that one person allowed to do that? Like, not what he did. More so.
I don't think antitrust laws existed until after Rockefeller, Standard Oil.
But I don't think that, first of all, that doesn't protect, none of that prevents monopolization anyway. Again, when we talk about the monopolies that have existed throughout America, the ones that you can point to, every single one of them have happened by way of the state being involved and benefiting the person who wanted to own all of this. It's not like, oh, I went here, you had something that I wanted to purchase voluntarily, so I bought it. It's no. What happened with the bail monopoly? It was, well, hold on, here's this service that we're going to provide. You want to compete with us? No, you can't, because we worked with the government, and the state has made it illegal for anybody else to build it. Like, that has happened, and this is why when we talk about moving, or rather transitioning from the system it is that we have right now, you can't look at it through the lens of the what if Bezos, what if this person that got extremely wealthy off of government contracts. We can't look at it through that lens, because that's not what we're not living that right now.
Vanderbilt didn't get rich out of the government. He was a shipping private enterprise guy.
Well, I'm not talking about him, how he got his money. And even with shipping, I want to know to the extent what, and again, I'm not familiar with it. I don't know, so I'm not going to pretend like I have the answer to that, but I just have a very hard time believing that one person without any sort of competition, because I can't find any other example where that has existed, without any sort of competition, or rather more so without the assistance of the state, was able to just up and say, you know what, I now own everything it is that exists. Because that doesn't make that, I can't process that. But if it's true, okay, but I have a hard time believing that, and this is why I'm going to have to look at the receipts myself on that, because I'm not going to pretend like I have the answer. I just have a hard time believing that was the case, where someone just voluntarily, without, was able to monopolize an entire industry. I have a hard time believing that.
There's a good documentary called The Men Who Built America that's worth checking out.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at any super rich, powerful individual today, they got that way from manipulating the current system that we're under and using a form of socialism for the super rich, while screw off everyone else, just do whatever you can to stay afloat, while, of course, the super rich gets tax breaks, incentives, and grants and handouts, while, of course, the majority of people are screwed over.
Before really we had government, it was all private. People would go form their own cities, and they would be like the god of theirs. John Astor built Astoria, New York. He was the god of Astoria. And there was no oversight. They became the god.
I have never heard of that existing.
I mean, Rome was built after a guy named Romulus.
But that didn't happen with slavery. When we talk about the country being built by people that were through private enterprise, like, that didn't happen then. So I don't understand. I'm having a hard time believing that this gap happened in which, okay, all of these people got rich. No state, not using any sort of form of statism, and were able to be the sole producer of that. Again, that didn't even happen with slavery. When you talk about slave codes fresh off the boat, where that was a statist institution. So I just have a hard time more so believing that. I get the fear, but every for the most part of these examples, you can always point to, well, this person was able to leverage the state, local government, or something like that, to be able to the price, we got to talk about minimum wage laws and how that has existed and how union workers would utilize this to price certain people out of the market. This is stuff that has existed over the course of America's history. So I don't believe that there was ever a gap where the state wasn't, if there was a true monopolization, because it's one thing to be a uber rich. I'm not like anti-rich, and I'm not suggesting that there aren't people that got rich by way of voluntary exchange. But if they become the sole producer, generally that means that they made it illegal for someone else to produce. They made it illegal for that person to be able to make that particular product. IP laws is another example in how that has been utilized to manipulate that, where we see one company owns the patent for this, and no matter if someone wants to make that particular, let's say, drug or something like that for cheaper, they can't, right? Or so I'm just using that as a kind of wild example, but that's an example of how that sort of stuff exists. So I'm gonna have to look at the receipts on that.
All right, let's see. Bub Savvy says, Tim, you cleared up the railroad question with Hotep. How long until Rockefeller would have to answer to the people and collaborate to prevent vandalism?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why we talk about incentive. Like, I know the people's brains definitely nowadays, when we see how evil the government is, it immediately defaults to what is the absolute worst that can happen. So someone comes up with some complicated scenario. What if this happened, and then that happened, and then that happened? And I have to ask the question, like, why was that? Knowing that human beings act purposeful action. That's why we call economics the study of human action, right? Not messing around with numbers and stuff. But why did that person act in the way that they act? So what incentive does a person I own the one road, right, that can get to and fro, and that person decides, okay, I don't want anybody else on it. What incentive does he have to do that? He's not going to be able to get goods, transport, but that's it, right? Yeah. Ideology. But who's to say?
Or just a general hatred or emotion.
That can be a thing. But that's what I'm saying. Like, how likely is it that someone, when we talk about trucking and stuff like that, and the concept of transportation, why on earth would someone that definitely, if the idea, let's say if it's greed or something like that, why would they derail that particular, let's say, source of income just for the sake of hating somebody?
If I owned all the roads in this neighborhood,
which would be nearly impossible for you to do,
if somebody owned all the roads in this neighborhood because they bought them all from someone else,
that is
it's possible under the thing you're saying.
No, it's not. It's highly unlikely.
What were you saying? The government would
no, I'm saying that when free people act and compete with each other, it is highly unlikely for you to do that unless you are preventing someone else. No, not at all.
Highly unlikely, yes. Possible, yes.
But possible, it's possible that I could slip down we talk about 99% survival rate. You can't criticize or fear, let's say, this concept existing just because it might be possible, even though it is very
listen, hold on a second. Consolidation.
You've been talking for 20 minutes.
And I'm going to finish this statement. Hold on a second. Consolidation of wealth is a common tactic. So if I owned all the roads in the neighborhood where you lived, listen to me, and your wife bothered me, and I wanted to screw you, I could. That's very dangerous.
Okay, here's a question.
First of all, that again, in order to do that, it will be nearly impossible for you to enforce that. By the way, it would be
not if it has private security.
Yeah. So enforce one person on a road, and that's another thing when we talk about the privatization of roads. How about you? You explain to me how you're going to enforce that.
Hire 100 guys.
How are you going to hire 100 guys to do what?
To block the road for you specifically.
For me, just me.
And this happens. And this happened when I was in LA. I went to the Staples Center.
Just for you, no. But I'm saying I understand that people travel, people have warrants and stuff like that. But right now, there are people that have like warrants, let's say, for their arrest right now that go out there and travel just relatively freely.
Yes.
Right now.
And so
how likely is it? And this is my frustration with that question, because it operates under a completely nonsensical hypothetical.
No, it's not. There are business chains that have people's pictures that you're banned for life. There's casino chains.
Absolutely. But that's a casino. That's not a road. You see what I mean? You're talking about a means of travel where thousands of people may travel. Yes, because how difficult is it for you to enforce that?
The road
versus you being in someone. Hold on.
Extremely easily. Two guys with a checkpoint and guns.
All the checkpoints. So you're gonna have a person at every single checkpoint checking every single person going to and fro. But that's the thing. We have to talk.
No, hold on, man. He said one road, And to screw with you,
That's not what he said. No, first of all, he said that if he wanted to screw me over, he would have to own all of the roads. So first and foremost, he's operating under a nonsensical example.
Okay, let's use a.
It's a high.
Let's use a sensical one.
Please.
Let's say there's a highway that I control.
Okay.
And you take my road and you get to the city in an hour. Otherwise, you got to go around. It takes 10 hours.
Okay.
I own the
road.
Why? I put your photo up and say I don't like you.
All right. So again, why are we operating yet again on another nonsensical example?
How's that nonsensical?
Nonsensical because how likely is it in a free society that only one road would get one place to where you had to go around for a 1 hour trip to a 10-hour trip?
It's called the Bridges in South Jersey.
That is again.
Entirely
monopolized by way of the government right now. So we're talking about my society.
Exactly.
So we're not talking about that right now. We're not talking about an example that exists right now and then trying to put what it is that I advocate on that particular example. That's why I keep saying that you're operating on a straw man. You're trying to look through it through the lens of what exists right now. I'm not advocating what exists right now. We have nothing close to what it is that
Twitter.
Yes, what about it?
Twitter monopolized political discourse.
How did they monopolize political discourse? We're talking about politics right now on YouTube.
Yeah. Where are we talking about the roads?
So there's absolute
and I'm not
monopolization.
I'm not saying again, maybe
Is PayPal a monopoly?
No, I don't consider PayPal a monopoly.
Even though they control 80% of internet financial exchange.
Yes, I would not consider it. But I'm not advocating. I'm not saying that there's not a problem there. That's not what it is that I'm advocating.
If you're banned from PayPal, you can't operate on basically, and you can't make money off any platform.
And how did we get to that point?
Because PayPal is the first in, best dressed.
First in, best dressed.
First in, best dressed.
First in, best dressed. Okay.
First in, best dressed. What it means is PayPal was one of the first platforms to allow interchange between various internet companies.
Okay.
Because everyone used it, it was the easiest way for people to function.
Right.
We now have some competition. One company, Stripe. But Stripe has a lot of the same policies as PayPal.
Okay.
You get banned from PayPal, you're not making money on the internet anymore.
So what's the point? I'm asking you for the point. Like, what do you mean? Like, what
PayPal's banned conservatives and right-wing individuals for no reason.
I understand that.
And destroyed their livelihoods and their businesses.
I understand that. But I'm trying to understand what the point is here.
So what Ian was saying is that for seemingly arbitrary or ideological reasons, people who control have massive control.
Again,
over
here we go, operating under the premise that that is a thing.
Why PayPal is a thing?
I understand that PayPal is a thing. We're talking about transportation and roads. Okay, so with that being said, how likely of a scenario in a completely free society? Why is it that the default is that one person controls the road?
Because
that doesn't even
that
doesn't even happen in the country right now.
It's Vanderbilt.
No, it doesn't.
There are private bridges and roads all over.
I know there's. That's what I'm saying, though. That's exactly the point.
I think what Eric is trying to say here, to make this kind of simple, is that there's a lot of bad people out there. But for the bad people to use institutions and systems to enforce their bad ideas is a lot more harmful than if there was a decentralization and they didn't have those larger institutions to force or hurt people.
And why that is silly, because the government is the one institution that can monopolize things, and they monopolized all of these things. And for someone to say that is the solution, I don't even understand how
the government makes sure that no one person owns all the roads.
And again, they actually do that. The government, the state themselves.
I mean, that's what they did with the railroads, for instance.
Well, no, I'm saying that's how the transportation system works in this country right now.
They won't let people.
So why is it okay for the state to monopolize it, but you think you fear so much that there is let's say some private individual that would do it? Why is it preferable that
because we own the state?
No, we don't.
Well, no, we don't. The way the government's written.
That's not how it works.
You may not feel like
that. That's legitimate. No.
And I understand.
Objectively speaking, that is an incorrect.
Have you ever seen a private security guard punch a cop in the face?
No.
They do it all the time. You got high-powered six-figure security guards who will punch a cop in the face. You can watch the videos online. A cop will walk up and there'll be a high-profile.
Oh, well, yes, I get that. People beef on the cops. So hell, I went to jail.
No. The point is, if you've got, at least the police have some accountability. Mobs don't.
Who?
Mobs don't.
What?
Who are mobs? Who are large gangs accountable to? If you live in the south side of Chicago and a gangbanger kills your brother or friend, who are you going to call? What are you going to do about it?
Oh,
you're going to go to the gang leader and be like, well, I want some reconciliation.
Well, they do
something.
it now, and there's barely any reconciliation. There's a lot of murders that go
look at what
unsolved
happens
in Chicago
and
anyway.
Look at what happened. Right, that's the point.
Yeah.
You have no way to hold any of these gangs accountable except going to
exactly.
police.
But
Hold
no. Even if you go to the police, you don't get any
That's what I was
accountability in the
just about
south
to-
side
no,
of
no, no,
Chicago.
I was about to
Yes,
say.
you don't get any accountability.
Hold on. You guys are speaking in absolute terms. That is not correct. Okay, I'll tell you this: if there is a 1% chance that I go to the cops and say I'm mad that guy killed someone I know, there is a 1% chance something gets resolved. It's better than going to the gang and he's gonna laugh in your face or point a gun in your face.
So why do we look at it like the state itself isn't a gang?
I didn't say it wasn't. I said at least there's some accountability.
So you just want a bigger gang then, right? You don't think there's I grew up banging, by the way. You don't think there's accountability among gang members?
Oh,
how do you think we operate?
There is, but not for people outside the
code.
gang. The people in my neighborhood who get killed get nothing. But if you're in the gang and you could commit some infraction, they say we'll take care of it.
That doesn't happen
Same
with the
thing
state.
with Antifa. Same thing with cops.
That doesn't happen. But this is what I'm saying. That didn't happen with the state.
It
So
just
I
happens
go-
on a grander, bigger
I tell
level
you
in the
this.
Middle East.
I tell you this: when you have these cops in all these different circumstances who are involved in justified shootings, like an actual incident where they were being shot at or something and
Yes,
defending themselves,
yes.
and they still get fired and they still
Yes,
get prosecuted.
yes.
So there is still some system of accountability for the police.
That's
But
not
the thing
accountability.
is-
That's not justice. If you said that they were doing the right thing and they get punished, that's
Yeah,
not that's not
a straw man.
accountability. That's not
That's not an
justice,
argument.
right?
I'm saying the fact exists that there can be accountability for police, and it happens.
First of all, what do you think it is that we're advocating? That's what I think we have a big time confusion here because I'm advocating for privatized forms of security and law. So I'm not advocating for a complete freaking free for all. You're looking at it as if the state is as it exists. At least they're accountable, which I think that is that's overstating it. But I would love more so for I don't know how exactly
who has
again
more
we talk
accountability,
about
G4S or NYPD?
Like why does that? What are you asking in that question? Like why are you asking me that? Serious question.
Because we're
No,
we're talking about,
but what's the point? Like why are you asking me that in the sense
so
of
the conversation started with a
Right.
discussion about a private road,
Right.
and an individual being able to tell you to go
right?
to go shove
But
off.
but again, you're all right. So we're looking at it like all right, at least this exists here, right? What I am advocating for, and this can apply to you as well, is that there is a market that exists. I accept the idea that there's a bunch of water bottle companies, right? A bunch of people that can create water. Dasani, Ozarka, Aquafina, Smart. There's all these sorts of companies that can do that,
And
and they
municipal
compete,
water.
and they compete with each other, right?
and municipal water. They compete with municipal water too.
What I'm saying is that all of these exist. For the law, it does not right now. That is completely monopolized by way of the state. What I am advocating is that system in itself be voluntarily arrived in a sense that there are competing firms. So I don't want one instance in which, because it's funny how we immediately go to the extreme, right? What if this?
So what?
Well,
is
hold on.
sentence-
Let me finish.
You just made a point. I got to answer it.
Right. No. I haven't made the ending point. What you're advocating, let's talk about the end game of that. This whole what if scenario. Well, what if I, or let's say any person, wants to become, let's say, ruler of said land and utilizes the same state that you think is supposed to protect you and then kills, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 6 million people. The government itself, the state, is most attributed to, we're talking actual like forms of democide and killing their own citizens. You will find more instances of that, which is why it's complete
All right, now
lunacy.
let's go back to the police
lunacy.
thing.
It's complete
Let's go
lunacy.
back.
Hold on. I just want to finish this one point. It's complete lunacy to act as if what I'm advocating is something that is extremely crazy when the ideology that basically you're advocating for, which is the state, is far more responsible, far more
all right.
examples
Okay.
of them
We gotta go
killing
way
more
back,
people
way back,
than what
way
it is
back.
that I'm advocating.
Google
So when we talk
democide.
about
Go way back to the
Yeah.
police.
blocking
Yeah.
people, let's
Let's
talk
go-
about
let's-
Nazi
let's go way-
Germany.
let's go
That's
way back
the
to the
end game.
police.
Or
Let's go-
democide.
Let's go
Look up
way back
democide.
to the
It's a
police.
thing.
And so what happens if I hire a law enforcement agency and they arrest you and I'm a high-paying customer with tons of contracts with this company, and you're not.
Why is it that I just don't understand why we keep having to operate on a what if where we go to the most extreme example.
How's that extreme?
It's very extreme because you're operating under this guise that this setup was that, okay, that's exactly what it is that I want. So it's a what if. I didn't say that's what that was the
said you
setup.
want competing law enforcement,
Yes,
right?
no. What I want is competing firms. How that comes to about, I have no idea, no way to predict that. You don't. I can theorize. Is it by way of some sort of insurance?
That's
no, it's not. No, it's not. I'm not. Utopian.
You just said no what ifs and brought up a what if.
Utopian means perfect society. I'm not advocating for a free society.
You just said no what ifs and
no.
What
I'm saying what exactly. That's the point because I don't know. You don't know either. None of us know. If I knew, we wouldn't be talking about it. No, you can have it. You can theorize. That's the best.
I just want a system where the labor is controlled by the people. Why don't we just do that?
Why? Okay, why don't you do it?
Because it doesn't work. Communism fails every single time.
Okay, yes, it fails every single time. I think you should be free to act that out voluntarily. That's all I'm saying.
Let it fail and
let it
don't
fail.
use force.
Let it
I
fail.
agree.
Use government agents to keep
That's all
forcing
I'm
a failed
saying.
idea
That's
on
all
people.
I'm saying.
Leftists
That's all
can
I'm
go buy
saying.
a farmland and set
That's
up their
all
own
I'm saying.
socialist communist society.
But I'm not operating
Do
on
it.
utopianism because I'm not pretending like there won't be an instance where someone gets murdered. There won't be an instance where someone has a wrongdoing. I'm not stupid enough to advocate that, but it's silly. That's why it's so silly for someone to try to pin this like definitely on the ideology it is that I advocate, to try to pin this like uber perfect. Oh, what is if this happens? How does Eric July and libertarianism solve it? The whole point of a market is that I don't know.
Well, when you bring it
And
up,
you let the market
a new
decide.
idea, I want to brainstorm that idea.
We can.
So
I'm all about
that's
that.
what
but
we're
to
doing right now.
Right.
So I will give you the biggest flaw I can see.
My issue with that, especially with you saying utopianism, because you're pretending like I'm saying that it's perfect. I don't know. I'm not.
Hold on.
I am not under
Luke,
any sort of.
You got manhandled by private security. Was it G4S? And where were you, Bilderberg?
There's a lot of like security that I have confrontations
You ever
with.
file a complaint?
No, usually it's the police that arrest me and harass me more and make up bullcrap stuff on me.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
You're right. Have you ever filed a complaint against cops?
I actually did, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
in New York City, I was beat up by the cops when I was 16. And I filed a complaint went with the Civilian Complaint Review Board, and after investigating, they found no instance of anything that happened, and it was all a bull crap that just absolutely wasted my time and nothing.
You ever
went to
complain about the private security that's roughed you up?
that. I see.
Come on, dude, you can't.
What private security? I mean, what private security?
You did
are
a
specifically
video where
talking about it?
G4S was roughing you up at some hotel.
That wasn't G4S. That was the private hotel security, and then police officers came and assaulted me, and then arrested me and put me in a cage. When the security was trying to manhandle me, I pushed them back. I walked away from them, and I told them if they aggress on me, what do you mean?
What's the solution?
The solution
Someone
is
with more power and more resources?
We don't know the answer. We don't know the solution, but I think it's best to strive towards a decentralization, towards a society where we are responsible for ourselves and don't depend on anyone else.
Do you think the government should control food?
No.
Okay. Do you think they should control, let's say, clothing? Right? Should they control clothing? Okay. So why is it that you think that they are best suited, the state? Right, the government, that's essentially the state, the territorial monopoly. Why you think that they are best suited to, let's say, solve all of these problems that I guess that we're talking about an instance
like
where
law.
someone's block off the road.
I'll give you one example.
This.
We have a constitution that guarantees me certain rights, and often those rights get trampled on. But at least there is a semblance of accountability. I've been through the system. I've been wrongly arrested on more than one occasion, and I've gotten my albeit imperfect version of justice in that I don't think I should have been arrested in the first place, but I end up winning. Now, I've also been manhandled by private security who laugh in my face, and who am I going to call? I'm going to call. I like to file a complaint with your company. Are you a customer? No. Then bye.
Well, click. We certainly don't have any instances. This is why I don't understand the mentioning of that, because right now we don't have like it's competing firms. Right now,
competing firms in what capacity? What do you mean?
And when I say competing firms, I'm saying when we talk about right now, the state monopolizes law. It decides what's wrong. It decides what's right. No, we don't.
What do you mean?
No, we don't have compete. No, the state there is no competition against, let's say, the state. What they say goes is ultimately.
It's called cashmere.
They made who?
Kashmir.
What about
You got two different
Kashmir?
governments fighting for control over what
but
the law
again,
is.
I understand that, but no, we have federal governments, we have state, and we have state governments, we have local governments. That's states competing with other states, and that's why I would prefer that they be broken up for that exact reason, because I would prefer them actually competing with each other in a sense that definitely when it comes to my mobility and being able to move, I would prefer that be a thing as opposed to government or one world government or something like that.
Yeah. So like cities have different laws, states have different laws, counties have laws, countries have laws.
Right.
So you can freely move to a different place with different laws if you don't like the laws here.
Exactly.
That's competition.
Exactly. Well, no.
That's why everybody wants to come to America.
What I want is more of that. This is why I would prefer decentralization, right? Because why, if I accept that Canada is different from America, why can't I accept that Texas be different from the rest of the United States? So why do we accept? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm advocating
I don't
for
agree
as
with
a solution to getting towards
law
the
and judiciary in the United States.
Well, it wouldn't be a United States if that was the case.
Like if Virginia's got its own laws and West Virginia's got its own laws, and that's a fact, then you can choose to live in one of the other states.
Bingo. This is why I advocate for decentralization.
Yeah, so the initial conversation we were talking about is someone owning a road and deciding to cut you off because they can.
Yes.
And that happens.
Yes. And the state cuts me off all the time, business licensing and all
it's the
sorts
exact
of
same thing.
So no, it's not the exact same thing, because when they get to do that, I actually it's more likely that I can fight against someone else than I can the state anyway. There's nothing if the state exactly, that's the problem.
Yeah, we don't want big
monopolies. I don't want
monopolies.
the big monopoly. That's the thing. I don't want that monopolization. That's the whole reason why I advocate what it is that I advocate.
So it doesn't make so when you're talking about competing firms,
yes,
it exists.
Not in the libertarian sense, no.
Like
I want more. I want more. I don't want to
move to what's that state in Mexico?
I don't.
Chiran. Why aren't you there?
Well, because I'm here, I'm out of Texas. I would rather decentralize that because I live there. I was from there. That's more so what I want. Why am I required do you tell like people that, I don't know, get aggressed upon to just stop getting aggressed upon?
If you live in a bad neighborhood, leave the neighborhood.
Yes, so that's what you tell them instead of I don't know, I know I moved away from where I was from. But that's not the ultimate solution. That person still did something wrong to that person at the end of the day. That's wrong, right? You would agree murder, theft, and all those sorts of things, rape. Those are very bad things. And the last thing, I don't tell a woman that gets raped, well, you shouldn't have wore that skirt. We don't tell people that.
That's a totally different argument.
No, it's not. It's the same argument that you just made,
no,
Tim.
It isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
Stop. The argument I made is if you keep going into an alley,
if
you keep going into an alley and getting robbed, stop going in the alley.
You just made that same argument.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You made the same argument that you're not placing the responsibility.
If you live in a bad area.
Yes, I know that, but that's what I'm saying. When it comes to the wrongdoing,
you have choices.
Yes, you have choices. So
how is telling someone to leave a bad neighborhood the same as blaming them for wearing clothes and getting raped?
It's the same. How is it not? Because the reason why no, it's not. Because you're saying that if someone says, let's say a female dressed a certain kind of way, and that person and that, I don't know, someone liked the way that person looked, and that person committed an act of aggression, be it an assault, rape, or what have you. That's the same exact argument. You're the abuser. It's not me. Yes, it is. I'm not the abuser. I'm not. I'm like, because we're talking about the state. Right? If I'm in a bad neighborhood, it doesn't have to be a state. We're talking about actual aggressors. If I'm in a bad neighborhood, I understand that, yes, I'm in a bad neighborhood. Is it preferable if I have the mobility to be able to move? Absolutely. That doesn't change the fact that those people that are being destructive to their community aren't bad. So the thing that I don't tell, but that's why I'm not saying, I don't default to, yes, it's preferable. If someone is using aggression upon you, try to go the other way. This turn the other cheek. We say that stuff all the time, or rather defend. What is, all right, explain it to me one more time. I want to get your argument right.
If somebody is like, here's a dark alley that I've been robbed in 3 times, and you're like, that's crazy, and they go, I'm gonna go walk through it again. Wouldn't you be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that?
All right. I'm gonna try to use. Let's try to see if this is the same analogy. Someone knowingly got, let's say, assaulted. Let's go back to the.
They've been assaulted several times.
No, that's what
they have a choice.
All right, someone that was sexually assaulted, right? Someone is sexually assaulted by way of the person was attracted to them because they wore whatever thing that it is that they wore. If they choose to wear that
is not
same
walking
thing
through an alley,
but that, of course, it's not the same exact thing. That's why it's an analogy, Tim.
No, that's
but
not.
That's
totally different argument.
How is it a different argument? Explain it.
You have an alley.
Yes.
where there's crime.
Yes.
And you keep going in there.
Yes.
And you keep getting.
All right. I'm using the same exact thing. You have a person that's wearing clothing, right? And they get because they dress in a certain way, men or
they're
whatever,
getting raped
grabbing
by the
them down.
same people because they're wearing the same clothes every time.
That's a very well
then
possibility.
the argument is stop going around those people
No
and leave
shit.
the neighborhood.
Tim, I understand that. I'm not saying that isn't the preferable thing to do. What I'm saying is I don't blame that person for wearing those sorts of clothes, and I don't default there when that person is aggressed upon. So when you say, well, just move, that's why I'm using that exact example, because all you're doing is telling the woman after she has been assaulted because of what she's wearing, you tell her just don't wear it.
That's not a real argument.
That is a real argument. You might not like it. It's the same argument.
For clarification, Eric said ship. And second, I see no one has been taking the ashwagandha I've been giving out to people.
I have been.
And are there more super chats that maybe have more input on this?
I love
what
the
they think?
idea that there are people who live in cities that are upset that they choose to live in this city, and they do, and they're mad they got to pay taxes on that city. Because I literally walked away, slept in parks, got in my car, and just left. And you know what? I was broke, and I said, whatever. It's my choice to choose where I'm going to be. How is it incumbent upon someone else's neighborhood to provide for me?
I'm not saying
I don't want to leave.
I certainly haven't made that argument that it's on the neighborhood to provide anything for anybody. All I'm saying is that I don't blame that person for being in that situation just because whether they was raised that way, whether they got family there, whether they got kids, and if someone is aggressing upon them, I don't say, oh, well, you just leave, right? No, I'm like, oh, that aggression is bad. Is it preferable, considering that is the circumstance that you live in, to get the hell out of there? Absolutely. That's what I did. I'm from South Dallas. I grew up banking. I grew up claiming blood. I grew up doing all of that stuff. And of course, it was preferable for me to remove myself from that. That doesn't change the fact that I, as a person that grew up doing that, was terrorizing my own community. It has everything to do with what we're talking about, Tim, because that's what I'm saying, that is on the aggressors. I was actually the aggressor back then, terrorizing my own community. So I get it. I'm not disagreeing with the idea that if you have that mobility to be able to get the hell out, do it. But that is not, I'm not going to say because someone aggressed upon someone that was living in South Dallas, living in Chicago, or living in a rough part of LA, that they should just up and leave. No, it is wrong what their government is doing to them. It's wrong for what gang members in a certain area or whatever wrongdoing is happening.
So let's step back from the extreme argument and put it this way. You have a choice to live in New York City. New York City's got a city income tax.
Yes.
Okay, that's crazy. You can leave.
Yeah, you can.
There are competing jurisdictions vying for your resources.
Yes, and
your money,
and that's
your
why
labor.
I want. Yep, and I agree with you 100%. That's why I want more of them.
And we have tens of thousands.
Yeah, no.
Like
we have 50 in terms of the states. I'd love if there were more.
There's other countries.
No, I know there's other
state,
countries.
Mexico?
Yes, I understand there's other countries, but that doesn't change the fact.
Why aren't you in Chiron?
Because I'm here.
But you can go there.
I can go anywhere. I can go a lot of places, but I don't. I live actually in a place that I actually like. It's part of why I would want to break away from the federal government, because the federal government is the bigger aggressor than Texas, where I'm at. So I want them off my back. So I would rather separate from them than move, I don't know, away from somewhere else. I like where it is that I have. And again, this is why it's the weird question.
There's two different approaches
it's an
here,
interesting
and
philosophical.
I think both of them have merit.
Well, it's an interesting philosophical argument that I don't want to leave, so everyone else should change, even though most people seem to agree with it.
What?
Most people in this country are totally fine with the way things
are
so
going. Why vote? Why vote or do any of that thing then? Because people disagree. They show ways by way of their voting with their dollar, by way of actually voting by way of the state. They all show that they disagree in some way, shape, or form. That's a complete non-argument. Everybody everywhere, for the most part, is disagreeing with people. Yes, of course, there are more, let's say, non-libertarians than me. There's also more, let's say, where I'm living at, maybe more red. There's more Republicans than there are Democrats. It's a complete non-argument. Of course we disagree, but the point that I'm trying to make is that I would much rather, the reason why I don't mind secession, because it gets the power closer to the individual. So I agree with the point. You're actually making the argument for me, this idea that West simple. Virginia is different from Maryland, so I'd rather go there. Okay, I would want that applied even more.
The simple thing out of all this is you like living under the rules of the federal government
No,
more than you would prefer to leave that government?
No, I like there's another multitude of different reasons as to why I live and where I live. What it ultimately boils down to is that I like where it is that I am. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I like the culture. I have a lot of like-minded people that live around me. Who is on my back right now the most is the federal government. And that doesn't mean if the federal government completely gets out the way that there isn't a fight to be had. It's an easier fight to be had to oppose, let's say, the Denton County or whatever, as it is to oppose Texas. As likewise, it's easier to oppose Texas government than it is to oppose the federal government. So again, I agree with that point. It's actually making my point and why I think that there should be more, especially if we're going to come to some sort of peaceful concession.
And what it all comes down to is you would rather live where you are,
yes,
with everything all the problems you have with the federal government,
yes,
than in a freer state like your own.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
that's
that's not.
Otherwise, you'd be there.
No,
if you
just
to be there, you'd be
there.
there.
No, yes, exactly. That's the point.
You don't want to be there.
I don't want to be there, but
exactly.
you're trying to put the reason why I want to be there on me, and I think that's disingenuous for you to do that, Tim.
How's it? You'd rather be in one place than another.
Yes,
that's a fact. Actions speak louder than words.
Absolutely, I'd rather be a place than another. I don't want to live there. I'm not familiar with the culture. I was not raised there. I don't want to be there. There are a multitude of different reasons because I don't want to go somewhere else. It's a complete non-argument. It doesn't mean anything because what I'm talking about right now is that in this instance, the federal government is my biggest beef. They tax me the most. They, when it comes to some of these, would be Social Security and all these sorts of things that have to come out of my check, or rather they expect to be paid that. I don't want that. So I fight against that. Yes, there are other reasons why culturally I don't want to be somewhere else. So it's not because it's necessarily just freer. That's only one aspect. Yeah, I can go to somewhere that may be quote unquote freer. My family's not there.
The real problem is as civilizations scale up and all land falls under certain jurisdictions, then there's nowhere for you to go. And what do you do when most of the people in the country are fine with the way things are going? You can fight for it. You can advocate for it.
That's exact, and that's what I do. That's why I am as vocal as I am about the philosophy it is that I adopt, because I want to see some sort of change. Other people do it in different ways. Some people want to enact change by way of voting. Some people want to enact change by way of, community activism, church, or whatever it is. They have their ways of going about it. My battle to fight is here. That's where it's at. I don't want to bail. I don't want to just leave. My battle is fight. I was raised here. I understand the language. I understand the culture. This is where my battle is, and I want to work towards a freer society. And I'm far more useful here than going somewhere else just up and bailing just because they may be quote unquote freer. It's not about me wanting, to live under this particular federal government and not under where somewhere is free. No, that's just one aspect of it. The thing is an end game that I ultimately would like to work to. And I want to fight the battle here. This is where I am familiar. This is where I feel that I'm supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be in wherever the place it is. Tehran, in Mexico. I don't know where that's at. I don't live there.
Things that are challenging are fun. I like challenges.
The start of the conversation was basically competing judiciary systems as opposed to legislative systems.
Yes.
And they exist.
Yeah, I know they exist. I never said they didn't exist. What I'm saying more so is I want more of those to exist, and I want it to be far more competitive. What we have right now, when you consider what the federal government is that it has monopolized this entire land, and there are rules that we must follow. Half of them don't even make sense considering the geographical area that I'm in, that unfortunately they impede on people's freedom, on people's rights, and I don't like that. So I would rather dissolve that, and that's one less problem. That doesn't mean that that's the end all. That doesn't mean it stops. That doesn't mean just because the federal government broke up and now the states are now countries or what have you, that means the battle stopped. No, and this is why I always say that it is not necessarily a battle of might. It's a battle of wits. I'm not completely oblivious to the fact that I live somewhere that most people here aren't libertarians. I'm not completely oblivious to that. I know that. This is why it's an educational war as much as it is a more might. Because this is why I wouldn't side with the Antifa type. If we ended the government as is right now, where have we gotten? Nowhere. all that's going to happen is that a new one is going to form in its place as long as the people that are living there still think the same way it is that they think. And this is why I say it's just as much educational as it is
And
a battle of
responsible,
might.
Right.
responsible for each
Yeah.
other.
I agree that the federal government's got too integrate in what we're doing, but I also think that there's importance in regulation, that the government does utilize regulation sometimes to our
To
benefit.
destroy small businesses and
Sometimes-
allow Amazon and all these other big box companies to profit and destroy small businesses.
and
That
sometimes
regulation.
and sometimes it's to keep the roads free for everyone to use. So I think there is a value to leaving some sort of federal government in
Or
place.
making sure there's fluoride in people's drinking water so their teeth are clean.
Yeah, imagine if if the government had a full monopoly on water, how much crap would be in that water?
Well, as we know, Luke, you're completely wrong because all they did was put fluoride in it,
Yes.
and that made our teeth clean.
yes, not a fan of the fluoride guzzlers. I'm super curious what the super chats have to say about this
JD
conversation and where they stand.
Yeah.
I think maybe we could even do a poll saying if you agree with
No,
this
hold
kind
on.
of idea, you
I
press
gotta read
one,
this.
or you
No, I
press
gotta read this
2
question
if you
first.
disagree.
JDTN says, Tim is saying your situation sucks, so leave. Eric is saying your situation sucks, so fix it. Not true. What I'm saying is if you're advocating for competing legislative or judicial systems and there's competition between them, you would, like, I'll put it this way. Let's say there's a bunch of different burger restaurants and you're like, man, I keep going to Burger King and it gets me sick every time. Okay, go to Wendy's, right? You don't, or do you stand up in Burger King and demand they fix their burgers?
That is absolutely, well, I mean, that's actually a form of more of a marketized form of regulation. Because what happens if this Burger King or whatever did do that, and I go run my big mouth about it? This is why I'm against like concepts like the Civil Rights Act. And actually, there were examples of that. One of the biggest myths is that, well, the southern states all just wanted to be very racist against people. That is factually incorrect. You can look to examples like Plessy versus Ferguson, where you had examples like the Louisiana Boxcar Act, also known as the Separate Boxcar Act. And there were actually companies that did not want to segregate their people. That's not what they wanted to do. They didn't want to segregate them, but instead what happened was, and this is why I had a hard time believing that the state just up and allowed that, or the state wasn't utilized to allow that sort of monopolization that we were mentioning earlier. The state, with the Separate Boxcar Act, forced companies to segregate colored folk from black folk. It was not a market. The market itself, the actual company, which again, don't take my word for anything, go look it up, was actually against that law for economic reasons. It would cost them more to spend more money on boxcars, having to try to separate the white folk from the colored folk. So they themselves in the South were against that particular law, and there's instances that for whatever reason we don't talk about that.
Let's have the market decide. Press 1 if you think Tim and Ian are correct. Press 2 if you think me and Eric are correct.
Well, I am
Let
right.
the crowd decide.
Because my point is, if you're advocating for the ability to choose between jurisdictions, you can do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't try and fix the place you're living in. I'm saying
we made a lot of different arguments, and I think press 1, Tim and Ian. Press
Or
2,
9 or 7
me,
or
Luke
something.
and Eric.
Yes.
or 9 or 7.
1 or 2. Let the crowd decide. I think that's the most interesting way to
Mash
kind of
that
burst
keyboard.
this
Yeah,
conversation
All right,
in
so
the
we
comment
just
section.
got in just a whole slew of super chats. There's a whole bunch, man. They're all, well, let me just, there's so many. And let's see, so I'll scroll down. Tim is right. Tim is the best. Tim is the smartest.
One,
Aaron-
one,
Yeah,
one,
I'm
one.
kidding,
Who
I'm
has the
kidding.
monopoly of control
Right,
when it comes to
exactly.
comments
No,
right
it's
now?
mixed. It is. Some people are saying that, and I'll only read this one. Ensuring small gang tribal warfare is almost inevitable from anarchism. There must be some type of social construct agreed upon to work. People equals a disparaging term. Eric, you're being defensive AF. Breathe, man. LOL, JK, you're all the
Bro,
best.
this is me. Like, this is slight work. Like, we're individuals that talk about
Yeah,
this
I know.
type
That's
of
why it's
stuff
fun.
all the time. Like, this is slight work. I hate that's textbook gaslight, man.
Yeah.
You relax.
They said,
Look
they
at
said
the large-
LOL, JK. I said
like,
LOL,
come
JK.
on, man. Like, relax. Like,
Well, when you
This
talk
is-
about
this is
smaller
slight work.
conflicts, I'd rather have smaller conflicts than bigger conflicts.
Yeah.
And someone like Joe Biden with his fingers on the nuclear trigger right now, I'd rather have that. So my personal choice in the choice.
Tube Amps Rule says, Ian, I've never seen you conclude your point more gentlemanly than you did today.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
very nice.
You did good.
The Dead Man says, Ian should look up the story of Thorn from Destiny. The gun is the focal point of the stories concerning multiple guardians. Yeah, I played Destiny, and yes, check it out. Let's see. Blaze88 says, Tim's logic equals move somewhere less free if you don't think you are free enough here. That's absolutely incorrect. I'm saying, first of all, I'm not leaving this country because I love the Constitution. Constitution needs to be enforced. So I agree. We got to fix these problems. The federal government has been amassing too much power. The shift away from local government into federal government has caused problems for everybody across the country. So I think we all agree on that. There's a reason why, if people have the choice to choose, if people have the choice between jurisdictions, it's funny how they keep choosing to come here because, it's the best in the world, isn't it? Got to fix a lot of the problems, though. Let's see. We've gone way over, so let's just read a couple more. Ed's World says, anarchy ends in pay to win. Dylan Keller says, if you guys end the stream without spinning the male vitality, I'm going to flip out.
Okay, I'm going to try and get it back on. It fell off the metal.
It fell down.
The magnet
Sorry.
in my
All right.
fervence.
Dane Phillips says, just found out about Eric from the show last night. Been watching his stuff all day. Great stuff, Tim and Co.
Very cool.
Nice.
Now that
Appreciate it. Thank
we've
you.
gone an hour and 15 minutes over.
gosh.
What a good
What?
schedule.
Yeah.
That was fun. I like it. I like
It's a
the
good
bait.
show.
I
It's a
like
good
it.
show.
But you guys need to take ashwagandha. That's another topic.
No,
Okay.
you need to take. Isn't the male vitality?
I don't think
You
we.
need
I
to
think we
take
need less of that.
Male vitality from
We need way less
InfoWars
of
Life.
that.
Infowars.com. Male vitality. Spin that male vitality.
There you go.
But it was an interesting debate. It was fun. And
Male
I think
vitality is
the
spinning.
comment section will let us know
I
who
think
they like.
I think
more.
it's fair to say
Yeah.
we all agree that the state is the only source of moral good in the world, and that
Yes.
the ability of individuals to freely trade their goods is amoral and wrong, and that the only true utopia will emerge once we take away all of the rights of free trade and communize the entire planet under an authoritarian one world government.
For the greater well-being, for equality.
That's the
Yeah.
preference.
Yeah.
Then everyone's equal.
The great reset. You know,
Yeah.
we already
That's the
have that.
preference.
It's happening.
Yeah.
So
Just go with
Yeah.
it.
Decentralization and competition with a good referee, in my opinion. So I'm all in favor of a mixed economy, and the U.S. shifts a little bit back left and right, but it's fairly in the middle when it comes to economic freedom. It's far from a free market capitalism, and a lot of regulation ends up becoming just gum in the gears of the machine, making it messed up.
it's
I'll tell-
used as a weapon to hurt small businesses by big businesses.
And that's what it's historically done.
I'll
Don't
tell
take
you- Yep.
minimum wage. A lot of these things that people advocate right now were absolutely used to do just that, to hurt competitors.
You know what I think the problem is with the healthcare system? Because I hear the people on the left saying single payer, simplify everything, and then I hear the right saying free market, show the prices, and I'm like, those are both actually fine arguments. There's a lot of pitfalls you could probably find in some of them for different reasons based on moral arguments. But what we have right now is like they took some of just different parts and just mashed it all together. And our healthcare system isn't capitalist or socialist. It's just a weird mash of corporate profit that doesn't really, but a better way to put it is a bunch of people getting rich off the backs of a bunch of other people through the power of the state. That's not a free market, and that's not a socialist system at all. It's a broken mash of garbage. So there you go.
socialism for the super rich.
Corporatist?
Yeah.
Oligarchy? Is that
Yeah.
what it is?
It's just
That's what it describes.
people who don't contribute extracting value using the power of the state. That's what we have right now. It's
Yes.
not. It's
Yep.
not. They say it's the capitalist. No, it's not. If it was capitalist, you'd have people competing with each other. You know how much an aspirin cost. You don't even know the price. You go to the hospital and you're like, I went to the hospital several years ago. I had a kidney stone. They didn't give me a list of the prices of the breakdown. They just gave me a bill for $25,000 a day later after a day in the hospital. And I called them and said, "What is this?" I was like, 25 grand. I was in the hospital for a day, and they were like, "Well, just give us your insurance." I said, "I don't have insurance," because it was the week between when I left Vice and went to Fusion, and they said, let me send you the corrected bill, 4,000.
Yep.
How does that make sense?
16 grand going
Criminal.
to insurance. What was that? That would have been $21,000.
25 was the total bill.
So what is that?
Made
Like
no sense.
600%
Yeah.
markup or something?
They didn't break down the prices either. I was like, I don't know what this is, because the system is broken right now. It doesn't make sense.
It's
So
a mess.
that's the real problem. It's not. We're not. You can't mash these things together and then just have like a Frankenstein of a system. It doesn't make sense. I'll leave it at that. Huh? All right, Eric. Thanks for hanging out. That was fun.
Appreciate it. That was fun.
Yeah, that was
Do
a
it
good
again.
show. Good show.
Let's do it again.
We went long. We definitely should. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll probably do something fun and extend for New Year's Eve. Maybe we'll go live all the three. Are you hanging out?
I'm gonna be here till Thursday. So
The
Is that-
morning
is that-
of, yeah.
morning of yeah.
So you'll be here for New Year's Eve?
The day, yes, a little bit, but I'm leaving that day. That's the day that I'm
bummer,
leaving.
bummer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna have a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
you want to shout out your channel or anything like that?
Oh yeah, Young Ripper 59. That's the channel if you want to holler at me. Of course, at Eric D July everywhere else, Twitter, you name it, man. And again, I appreciate you.
Oh, for sure.
Appreciate you having me on. Like this is the substantive conversations that we need to have.
A lot of I always love when people are kind of like, this is the best episode ever.
Yeah, no, that's
like whenever we're yelling at each other, people think it's the best
love it.
episode.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's
Passion.
what friends do,
Yeah,
man.
nah,
We get-
that's what I'm saying. Like, if y'all thought that I'm gonna like punch like Tim in the face or something
Or
like
Ian.
that, like or Ian, like
Don't
that's
yell
not,
at me. He was
that's
the one
not-
arguing.
We need
No,
a wide
that's
shot
not.
at the table.
No, that's not.
We could
that's-
have boxing matches.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God,
it'll be
it'll be
voluntary, of
fun,
course,
yeah.
but no, it's all good.
We'll play an airsoft game and we'll film it, and then Eric's like, ah. Ian's like, okay, you won. Luke, what's your channel?
My YouTube channel is We Are Change, and you can find me under Luke We Are Change on Instagram, Twitter, Venmo, and I also have T-shirts that, like the one that I'm wearing today and
Interesting.
yesterday, that you
T-shirts.
could buy on Teespring's We Are Change. So
I
yeah,
got
check
some
those
really
out.
good ideas for clothing we're gonna make soon.
Let's do it.
Yeah, shout out if you're a graphic. Well, I think I have a few graphic designers already. It's gonna be fun. It's not gonna be political.
Well, my
Pictures of
my
cats and
short
stuff.
store helps me to be
Yeah.
free and independent, and it's been huge. And I thank you guys so much for purchasing it, because it keeps me up and running and keeps me away from, doing anything else. So thank you. I appreciate
you
it.
go.
Yeah.
Ian, I hear that you have a Twitter or something.
I do. It's at Ian Crossland. You can follow me all over the internet. In fact, my YouTube channel, I just uploaded a video today talking about some ideas about fixing our government, our financial system, and our internet Bill of Rights that you can watch on my YouTube channel at Ian Crossland and follow me.
I think
subscribe there.
everybody here, like we have in common, is like libertarian in a certain degree. Like
Yeah.
varying degrees of libertarian is what like, but then there's like cooperative versus competitive, like certain arguments. But
Yeah, I don't think
interesting
it's not doesn't strike me as a utopian answer, but it seems like the most sensical path towards like a next generation of United
a one
States.
world communist government. You say,
Of
right?
course,
Yeah.
something simple like that.
Nice and simple.
And of course, you can follow Sour Patch Lives, who's
Yes,
pressing all the
yes,
buttons.
and I really do like engaging with libertarians much more than authoritarians, because libertarians tend to think out what they think, and authoritarians do not. It's easy.
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Parler at Timcast. Check out my other channels, youtube.com/Timcast and youtube.com/TimcastNews. And also make sure you check out the show on iTunes, Spotify, and all podcast platforms. Leave us a good review. It really, really does help. Man, the show's been doing really good on podcast platforms. And that's where like the big, I don't know, it matters. The podcast is legit stuff. But you can check us out Monday through Friday live at 8 p.m. here on youtube.com/Timcast IRL. Smash that like button. Hit the notification bell. Subscribe. We will be back tomorrow at 8 p.m. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we will see you all then.
Bye, guys.